Chapter 828. Oh, Master, you can't do that. Wouldn't you be erasing Washington from the face of the earth? Keynes almost jumped up in fright. Did you release a lot of surveillance satellites above Sidoni? Zhang Tian laughed. Ahem. That's true. Keynes was embarrassed as he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Release a few more and cover the entire sky above Sidoni. Bring some temperature, pressure, and energy measurement equipment. Then I'll blow up those satellites and show everyone the results. Zhang Tian laughed. Yes, Master. Keynes hurriedly agreed. But he still had some doubts in his mind. Those geosynchronous surveillance satellites were at an altitude of 36,000 kilometers. Could Master Kang's Kuelian attack them? Honey, how's the development of the Kuelian system? Zhao Xueqing asked with concern. It's almost done. Probably in early November. By then it'll definitely shock the world. Zhang Tian said with an expectant smile. You have to take care of yourself. Zhao Xueqing was a little worried. These days Zhang Tian had been working hard on the Kuelian system. He looked a little tired. This had never happened to Zhang Tian before. After all, Zhang Tian's body was too special. He didn't know what fatigue was. The main thing is to melt the frost iron essence and add it to the Kuelian launcher. It's quite tiring. Zhang Tian laughed. The frost iron essence can withstand the high temperature and pressure of the nuclear explosion core. I can only use my ethereal force to melt it slowly. Zhang Tian squeezed her hand and said apologetically, I haven't been with you enough these days. I'm sorry. Not only have you not been with me enough, but you also haven't been with Dad, Mom, Grandpa, and everyone else. Zhao Xueqing said coquettishly. Yes, Zhang Tian, you haven't been with me at all. At this time Jiang Wan, accompanied by little Arthur, was wearing a princess dress. She walked over with a coquettish face looking angry. King Arthur respectfully kowtowed with his forehead touching the ground. Little Arthur greets Godfather. Congratulations on suppressing the United States and dominating the world. Now Jiang Weiner was studying at Sidoni Royal Elementary School and was classmates with King Arthur. At the same time, the two of them were also third-generation students of Tianqing School. Zhao Xueqing personally taught them. Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing had always planned to have a child, but every time they wanted to get pregnant, something big would happen. However, as Zhao Xueqing grew older, her maternal instincts exploded, and she really treated these two children as her own. Despite her young age, Jiang Wan had already reached the initial transcendent state and was strong enough to overturn an elephant. The little girl was very violent. She would pull little Arthur out and beat him up for no reason. She would call it sparring and beat him until his face was bruised and swollen. Fortunately, little Arthur had also started to cultivate recently and had reached the iron body level. Otherwise he would not have been able to withstand the beating. Little Arthur often protested against Jiang Wan's violent behavior. However, Jiang Wan kept saying that she was Zhang Tian's cousin and he was Zhang Tian's godson. In terms of seniority, he should call her aunt. Isn't it normal for me to beat you up and teach you a lesson? Little Arthur was simple and honest by nature, so he could not refute Jiang Wan's words. Get up. Zhang Tian liked little Arthur more and more. He helped him up and rubbed his little head. Little Arthur was flattered. He smiled brightly, showing his white teeth, and stood aside respectfully. The little guy's nutrition could keep up. He had grown a lot taller and had delicate features. With the guidance of an expert, he had begun to show the demeanor of a king. How rude. I am your cousin and also your sect master. How dare you call me by my name? Zhang Tian was much more violent toward Jiang Wan. He pinched her round cheeks and ravaged them. The little girl was almost 8 years old. Although her face was round with baby fat, one could still see that she was a beauty. Zhang Tian, you don't stay at home every day and fight all over the world. Why should I call you cousin? The little girl raised her eyebrows and pouted in protest. Okay, don't worry. When I'm done with my business, we'll travel around the world. Zhang Tian said with a smile. Really? Why would I lie to you? I, your cousin, am a man of my words. Cousin is so nice. Now my mother doesn't let me go out to play. I stay in the sect all day saying that it's dangerous. Now I can get some fresh air. Jiang Wan's face suddenly changed. Her eyes curved into a beautiful crescent moon shape, flattering and fawning. Little Arthur was also happy. He had received an elite education. In addition to the regular classes, he also had to learn noble etiquette, dress, luxury goods, and so on. He also had to cultivate. In fact, his life was much more boring than his peers and he didn't go out to play much. Jiang Wan chatted with Jiang Tian for a while and then left with little Arthur. She said that she wanted to fight with the old dragon and beat up the heavens equal Saint Ape. That stinky girl is right. I guess I'm the only reborn celestial emperor who is as tired as I am. Jiang Tian said self-deprecatingly. Before the Spring Festival last year, he went back to Wuxia to destroy the ancient Wudong sect. He spent a day with his father during the Spring Festival and then went to Hong Kong to attend Qin Zhenming and Jiang Lin's wedding. After the Spring Festival, he went to the Sword Catacomb to train for a few months. Then he went to the European Union and the United States to kill the henchmen of the Gathering of Darkness and defeat the Universe Shield. After that, he went to the munitions factory to train the Kuelian. In the past 6 months, he had only spent a few days with Qing'er and his family. However, after the Kuelian system is developed, I will spend a few days with you. Jiang Tian promised Qing'er. Then he entered the Kuelian system again and started to work. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, half a month, 1 month. Right now it was already the end of October 2011. However, after Jiang Tian entered the Sunflower Lotus system, he didn't come out again. When Jiang Tian was in the Kuelian system for the final modification. On the other side of the earth, in the Qinghai Sea of Wuxia, on the vast land of Hoshili Nature Reserve, the sky was blue like a transparent blue glass. There were snowy mountains, glaciers, frozen soil and meadows. This place was called the No Man's Land. It was not that there were no signs of human habitation, but it was not suitable for long-term human habitation. There were no crops or trees. There were only low meadows. The temperature was -10 degrees all year round. In extreme cases, it could reach -40 degrees. On the vast land, a group of Tibetan antelopes were grazing on withered green grass. They looked up warily from time to time. Suddenly, bang! A gunshot broke the silence. A Tibetan antelope fell to the ground with blood spurting out of its chest. The rest of the antelopes scattered. At that moment, a few pickup trucks sped over from afar, trying to outflank the Tibetan antelopes. Each truck was loaded with Tibetan antelope fur. A few burly men with AK-47s sat on the fur. Bang bang bang. They had blonde hair and blue eyes. They looked like international poachers. The European ladies liked the ring scarf, made of Tibetan antelope cashmere. This kind of cashmere scarf made of Tibetan antelope cashmere was warm and did not stick to the snow. It had great expansion and could be easily worn through a ring. It was very popular with the European ladies. The production process of Tibetan antelope cashmere scarf was complicated. One scarf was said to be made from the fur of hundreds of Tibetan antelopes. The scarves made from Kiki-Shili antelopes were sold at the highest price and were of the highest quality. The European, especially the French, ladies' luxurious desires and high prices made the poachers see a way to make a fortune. They took the risk and hunted Tibetan antelopes to make money. The experienced poachers had incomparably accurate marksmanship. Sitting in a speeding pickup truck with a gun in one hand, they still did not miss a single shot. Every time they fired, a Tibetan antelope would fall. At this time, 3 armed police cars chased after them. The police officers opened fire and hit the poachers' pickup trucks. Dust flew everywhere. It was like a small battlefield. The international poachers were extremely rampant. They were related to foreign organizations and were fierce and fierce. They actually gave up on chasing the Tibetan antelopes and turned around. A total of 8 pickup trucks surrounded the 3 armed police cars and returned fire. Both sides exchanged fire and bullets flew. "Kill all these policemen for me." The leader of the poachers fired at the police cars crazily and roared. His eyes were shining with a bloodthirsty light. "Haha, today's harvest can earn at least 1 million." The poachers roared loudly and were extremely arrogant. It was a one-sided massacre. "Comrades, it's time to test us." The Ouagadougou Public Security Bureau's anti-poaching team leader Xing Donglei's eyes were filled with killing intent. He held his submachine gun and returned fire. They hated these poachers to death. Every year there were many nameless heroes who sacrificed themselves for anti-poaching. The police force here was insufficient and desolate, which gave the anti-poachers a space to wreak havoc. "Xiao Wu." Suddenly Xing Donglei's eyes widened and he exclaimed. He saw his comrade Xiao Wu lying in a pool of blood, holding his chest in pain. He was about to die. Then 2 more armed police officers were injured and fell. The enemy's pickup trucks had been modified and welded with a few steel plates as shields. They were like simple armored vehicles, but the armed police officers could not withstand their attacks. The enemy's firepower and equipment were completely superior to the anti-poaching police officers. They also had the advantage in numbers. Although the police officers were in a passive position, no one was willing to back down. The enemy moved forward steadily and the encirclement was getting smaller and smaller. The police officers could see the ugly and ferocious faces of the enemy. For a moment, danger surrounded them. Jing Donglei's heart suddenly tightened. However, it was at this moment that all of a sudden rumble. An earth-shattering explosion rang out. Dozens of kilometers away, a steep mountain peak of the Kunlun Mountains exploded. A few tons of rocks and debris were thrown into the air. The earth trembled violently as if there was a magnitude 8 earthquake. In the sky, a giant mushroom cloud rose up to 1,000 meters high. It even broke through the clouds in the sky. What is this? Nuclear test? Both the police officers and the bandits were stunned. They even forgot to fire and dropped their guns on the ground. Impossible. Nuclear tests have always been in the desert. There are still residents here. A bandit shook his head and said. Then everyone saw a strange scene. From the location of the explosion, a dazzling white light shot straight into the sky, dragging out a magnificent flame that was 400 to 500 meters long. It was like a rainbow piercing through the sun, shooting rapidly toward the east. Yi Tianren has come out of seclusion today. I wonder if the world still remembers the old man? A heroic and otherworldly voice reverberated in the sky like rolling thunder. It was also like the Milky Way pouring down in torrents. It contained an incomparably vast amount of spiritual energy, causing the mountain rocks to explode and the earth to tremble. Chapter 829. What the hell? Run. The leader of the poachers did not hear the sound because Yi Tianren's speed was faster than the speed of sound. However, the leader still felt a sense of uneasiness in his heart. He shouted for his companions to retreat. On a small mountain 10 kilometers away from them, a footprint suddenly appeared out of thin air above a thin layer of snow. It was a size 44 footprint. Left foot. The winter eagle was awakened by the sound of the footsteps. It looked at the distant sky vigilantly. The footprint appeared on the mountain, but it looked at the sky. Then the eagle's golden pupils shrank and its feathers exploded, as if it had seen something terrifying. The next moment, on the meadow 5 kilometers away from the first footprint, another footprint appeared. Right foot. A few yaks that were shivering in the cold wind were so scared that their bodies trembled. Their silly eyes widened and they tilted their heads to look at the sky, but they did not see anything. There were only footprints and no people. Every 5 kilometers or so, there would be a footprint as if an immortal was stepping into the human world. So, from the explosion site to the 30 kilometers distance between the police and the bandits, Yi Tianren only took a few seconds to cross the distance in 5 steps. Therefore, the robbers only drove the car a few meters away. So, when a big foot formed by vigorous true qi fell from the sky, the bandits had no chance to escape. The pickup truck was instantly torn apart as if it had been shot by a cannonball. Several tires flew a few hundred meters away. Some of the bandits in the truck exploded and turned into a rain of sparkling flesh that fell to the ground. Some of them were thrown more than 10 meters away, their flesh lacerated like a bloody gourd. They died instantly, but fortunately their corpses were intact. Fuck, we're just poaching some Tibetan antelopes from Wuxia. Do you have to use heavy artillery to bombard us? Run. Run. They're using cannonballs, too ruthless. The bandits on the other 6 cars were all dumbfounded. They screamed and cried in despair, tears of despair gushing out of their eyes. Fear would give rise to a strong desire to live, which would then make people burst out with powerful strength. They instantly drove the truck to 200 kilometers per hour and fled as fast as lightning. Reinforcements? Did they send the army? Where is it? Jing Donglei and the police officers were still in a state of confusion. They looked around but didn't know where the cannonball had come from. The second kick seemed to be 10 times more violent than the first. The pickup truck that was hit immediately burst into flames and exploded. A mushroom cloud even rose into the sky. The metal blocks of the vehicles melted in an instant, and the bandits on the vehicles turned into ashes. Not even their corpses remained. Boss, look at the sky. In the sky, there's a black dot. Is it an artillery shell? Yes, it's a person. At that moment the police officers were all stunned. Their faces were full of disbelief as they looked up at the sky. A black bean-like dot appeared in the sky. Then it grew larger and larger, and one could vaguely make out that it was a white-robed person descending from the sky. This person stomped his foot down, and a huge foot formed from white gas appeared in the sky. A huge footprint over 100 meters long suddenly appeared on the ground, sinking 5 or 6 meters deep into the ground. The remaining 5 poachers' pickup trucks were all trampled into scrap metal, and all the humans were killed. All the police officers were so scared that their guns fell to the ground. They saw an old man in a white robe with white hair and a white beard, like an immortal, slowly descending into the deep pit that was filled with minced meat. Is he an alien? The police officers were all scared out of their wits. They were trembling and hesitating if they should report the situation to their superiors. But he didn't look like an alien. The old man was unusually tall, about 1.9 meters tall. He wore an extremely luxurious white fox fur coat, but his face was thin and simple. His 3 strands of white beard fluttered slightly in the cold wind. He was obviously very old, but his eyes were especially bright, even brighter than a young man's. He gave off an indescribable and strange feeling, as if he didn't belong to this world. The old man strode over the pool of blood and walked toward the police officers. Zheng Donglei's hands trembled, but he gritted his teeth and reloaded the empty submachine gun. Don't worry, this old man is not a bad person. I don't kill good people. Yi Tianren waved his hand and laughed. Zheng Donglei hesitated but still put away his pistol. Yi Tianren walked up to the 3 injured police officers and grabbed at their wounds with his palms. Then he removed the bullets from their wounds. Then he took out a small white porcelain bottle from the fox fur coat, poured out 3 crystal red pills and fed one to each of them. The 3 police officers immediately stopped the bleeding. Their wounds healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and they soon woke up. Zheng Donglei was a fool. At this moment he also realized that this person was like an immortal. After all, there were many legends in the Tibetan area. Reincarnated Buddhas, Kunlun immortals, and so on. They all had very magical abilities. He had also heard of some of them. Old immortal, how should I address you? This is a no man's land and vehicles can't pass through. Do you want me to send you to the town? Zheng Donglei cupped his fists respectfully and bowed deeply. After saying that, he felt that his words were a bit silly, no, very silly. This old man flew across dozens of kilometers in an instant, faster than a bullet train. Why would he need them to send him? The old man is Yi Tianren. By the way, little comrade, what year is it? The old man casually threw a few bullets on the ground and asked with a smile. 2011 October 2nd. Zheng Donglei said with his mouth agape. The old man's seclusion has been for 20 years. Yi Tianren's eyes were filled with vicissitudes of life. He sighed as if relieved of a heavy burden. Fortunately, I didn't calculate the time wrong. A trace of light flashed in his eyes as he said with a smile. The old man wasn't late for the 3 years and a month with Kong Teichu. On this day, earth-shattering news spread throughout the world. The founder of the Huaxiaolong Formation, the #1 powerhouse 100 years ago, Yi Tianren, had broken out of seclusion. 10 days later, he challenged Kong Teichu to a battle at Kunlun Mountain's Yushu Peak. At this moment, the entire dark world was shaken. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. Yi Tianren. He was too powerful. Legend had it that he was born a poor child. His parents died early and he became a bandit in the White Mountains and Black Waters. He killed the rich to help the poor. Later he obtained the inheritance of the ancient Daoqing scroll. He read books every day and reached the peak of the transcendent state in a few years. A year later he entered the immortal state. He first joined the Kunlun sect and became the Kunlun sect's world wayfarer. After that he went to the Brahmin sect and the Buddhist sect to cultivate for 10 years. He combined the 3 schools of Confucianism, Buddhism and Taoism, and finally achieved great success. In the 1940s he returned from his studies and joined the army. He supported the anti-Japanese liberation movement of Wuxia and founded the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade. He was able to chat with many warlords and drink with the great ancestor. Wielding his sword, he traveled thousands of miles, sweeping across the heavens and earth. With his own strength he swept through the Blue Cloth Society, repelled the Chinese Hong sect, destroyed the 9-story pagoda, suppressed the Tibetan secret sect, and many other mysterious organizations. He had made great contributions to Wuxia and was known as the Great Wall of Steel of Wuxia. The early 90s was the last time he appeared in public. He transformed the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade into the Huaxiaolong Formation and let his son Yi Zhantian take over. Some people said that he died in a sitting posture. Some said that he was going into seclusion to reach the level of Sky Immortal and truly ascend. But he didn't expect that after 20 years he would come out and fight with Kong Teichu. This really shocked him. In the new century, the most powerful and the most outstanding person in Huaxia was undoubtedly Kong Teichu. But in the last century, Yi Tianren was writing a legend and it was his glorious era. But now, how could people not be excited and shocked by the top battle of the century? Yi Tianren has come out of seclusion and challenged Kong Teichu. Who do you think will win? The news was like a bucket of cold water poured into a hot pan of oil. The Huaxia Martial Artist Forum was suddenly in an uproar. Many people were paying close attention and discussing enthusiastically. I think Yi Tianren will win. After all, he is an experienced immortal state overlord. I think he has already surpassed the earth-level deity and is only a step away from becoming a sky immortal. Someone exclaimed. Everyone knew that Yi Tianren had broken the record and entered the immortal state in a year. This kind of cultivation speed, this kind of amazing talent, was too rare in the history of Huaxia's martial arts. It could be counted on one's fingers and could be said to be as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Many martial arts masters in the Republic of China once said that he was the most talented cultivator in the past 800 years. He had surpassed the ancestral master of the Hong sect, Situ Shao, and was comparable to the 9-sword immortal. Chapter 830. I also think Yi Tianren is better. Someone analyzed. Yi Tianren had been undefeated for a century. His combat experience was too rich. Moreover, he was successful and stood at the top of this blue planet. If he didn't have 100% confidence, why would he challenge Kong Teichu in his old age? If he lost, he would lose his integrity in his old age. Don't worry so much. Let's go to Mount Kunlun's Yushu Peak to pay our respects to Yi Tianren. Let's pay our respects to his peerless grace. Someone shouted excitedly. Yes, in this era of martial arts, the collision of the two most brilliant killing stars in 1,000 years, who knows what kind of earth-shattering explosion will happen? How can you and I miss it? Thus, countless powerhouses of Huaxia set out, either by plane or car, towards Mount Kunlun. The news quickly spread to the Darknet forum. When Yi Tianren's information was dug up, everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. The powerhouses of the world were very concerned about this matter. Oh my god, Yi Tianren defeated Zeus and Miyamoto Genichi. He's too strong. Even Zhang Qianlei is no match for him. The demon hunter Pulsatilla flipped through Yi Tianren's information. The more he read, the more frightened he became. 100 years ago Yi Tianren appeared in Huaxia. 100 years later, Kong Teichu appeared in Huaxia. God is really too kind to Huaxia. Hera of the Palace of God sighed. Many powerhouses felt the same way. Now the United States Cosmic Shield Blue Storm was defeated by Kong Teichu. After the Wolf King defected, the Winter Soldiers also existed in name only. The Palace of Gods was greatly weakened. In the Battle of Sidoni's Bibu Gulf, Kong Teichu killed more than half of the entire Dark World, withered and trembled. Only Huaxia was blessed by the heavens and had countless experts. Now Yi Tianren was actually still alive. It should be said that it was Yi Tianren and Kong Teichu who revived Huaxia's martial arts. The Saber Sovereign sighed. Over the years, the Huaxiaolong Formation and War Dragon had benefited from Jiang Tian. They had many grandmasters and even some immortal state warriors. As for Jiang Tian's several dojos in Huaxia, such as Ancient Wudong and Shinnong School, many experts had also sprung up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. Coupled with the Tianqing School located in Sidoni, the entire martial arts world in Huaxia could be said to be progressing at a rapid pace and developing vigorously. Although Jiang Tian had left Huaxia's nationality, everyone knew that if any expert dared to offend Huaxia, Kong Teichu would definitely be the first to suppress him. It was said that in this grand occasion, even the chief of the central government praised Kong Teichu's performance, saying that he was unparalleled in the country. It was said that Kang Teichu had single-handedly pushed the martial arts world and Wuxia to the world and suppressed the world. No matter what kind of mood they had, no one could ignore this battle. Many people set out for Wuxia. The British MI6, the Hall of Gods, the Russian Winter Soldiers, the Pentagon of the United States, the CIA, and the FBI all sent intelligence personnel to Wuxia to assess the combat strength of these two people. In the Holy See of the Vatican, in the Holy Tomb, the grass was luxuriant and the holy light filled the air. A powerhouse with long curly hair sitting in front of the tomb, wearing old-fashioned metal armor from the Middle Ages, suddenly opened his eyes and stood up. Yitianren Kangte. Immortals from the east and demons from the east. He was as tall as a mountain, and a trace of murderous intent appeared on his resolute face. This time I want to see for myself whether this Kang Teichu has the power of gods and demons. If there were people from the underground world here, they would definitely be dumbfounded. It was said that the last supreme arbiter of the religious court of inquiry, St. Augustine, who had passed away 100 years ago, was still alive and hiding in the holy tomb of the Holy See as a tomb keeper. In India, on the banks of the Ganges River, in the Jade Buddha temple of the Brahmin. In a temple covered in vines, the door that had been sealed for 100 years suddenly opened slowly. An ascetic monk, dressed in sackcloth, slowly walked out and gently flicked away a fly stuck in a spider web on the door. Seeing the fly fly away, his face was full of peace and joy. Demons have appeared in the human world. An old man should cleanse the sins and return the world to its former glory. He looked to be in his 30s with a shiny bald head and a handsome face, but in fact he was already 1,000 years old. Congratulations, Master Mahakasyapa. You've obtained great fortune and great wisdom. You've been reborn from nirvana. Outside the door, countless disciples kneeling on the ground kowtowed. Their eyes were full of reverence and ecstasy, and they were so excited that tears streamed down their faces. These were all known forces. But some super powerful life forms that the world didn't know were alarmed by this. In Russia, the Tunguska explosion was a forbidden area. After 100 years of life and death, the site of the explosion had become a large lake known as the Tunguska Demon Lake. There were green trees and turf beside the lake. But the lake was pitch black and lifeless. Demonic chi surged, but there wasn't a single ripple on the lake. It was as if a demon had opened its huge mouth and was about to devour the whole world. It also seemed to be connected to the dimensional space in the depths of hell. Even now, this place was listed as a military-restricted area with high-voltage electric barbed wire. Usually it was heavily guarded. Other than the scientific researchers and the military, no one was allowed to enter. But ever since the two scientific research ships sank inexplicably, even the scientific research had stopped. This place had become a no-man's land. Suddenly, the black water surface rippled. A monster with 4 arms, pitch-black scales all over its body, 1 eye, long hair and baring its teeth emerged. He was tall like a prehistoric giant. With a leap, he soared into the air and crossed a distance of several kilometers. When he landed, he smashed a deep pit in the ground. I heard that Kang Teichu can withstand nuclear weapons alone. Perhaps, the critical moment of the great changes on Earth has arrived. Our demon race can dominate the entire world. This monster's every move was filled with demonic chi and ferocious flames. It was actually a large demon, and it had cultivated into a partial human form. Not only that, in the northeastern region of Wuxia, the Bermuda Triangle, the pyramids of Egypt, the Mesopotamian basin and many other places, countless old monsters were hiding in the world. Some of them had lived longer than Situ Shao, Icefield Wolf Ancestor and Blood Ancestor Cain. Some powerful demons and ferocious beasts couldn't sit still anymore. They showed themselves and reappeared in the world. Although these demons and beasts tried their best to hide their tracks, some people still saw them and sent them to the world of the powerful through the internet. Are there really demons and monsters in this world? Some powerful cultivators exclaimed on the dark web forum. An ocean-going fishing boat took a photo in the Bermuda Triangle. A woman with a seductive face and a voluptuous figure jumped out of the sea. She looked like a mermaid. It must be a special effect photo. Wuxia Photoshop is one of the 4 new evil techniques, along with Korean plastic surgery, Japanese makeup and Thai transfiguration. Some people didn't take it seriously. This picture can't be photoshopped. It has been verified with professional software. Someone said with certainty, it can't be. Are there really mermaids and mermaids? Everyone couldn't figure it out. There's a popular legend. Earth used to be a great cultivation planet where spiritual energy was abundant, great medicines were abundant, and deities, demonic beasts, and humans coexisted. Zhou Xian, the sect master of the Xianxia sect, read some ancient books and gave some explanations about these phenomena. But because of various reasons, the spirit chi of heaven and earth was taken away. Deities fell and deities fell. The birth of an immortal is a sign that the spirit chi of heaven has completely recovered. The world will change greatly. The overlords of the alien races and the descendants of the ancient and medieval deities who know this secret have all come out of seclusion and are paying close attention to this battle. They want to know if the spirit chi of heaven and earth has recovered so that they can seize the opportunity in the future. He shouted loudly. The humans had to remain vigilant. It was best for Jiang Taichu and Heavenly Yi to stop fighting and not expose their divine immortal cultivation. Because this battle might lead to the rise of the alien races, the descent of deities, and some unknown dangers. He's crazy. Zhou Xian hasn't broken through recently. He's always fantasizing about strange things. Many people didn't care about this. Besides, no immortal has been born for thousands of years. Kong Taichu and Yi Tianren may be powerful, but I'm afraid they haven't broken through to the immortal realm. You're worrying too much. Someone retorted. In any case, during this period of time, the overlords of the world and even the intelligence agencies of the major countries turned their attention to Wuxia, to the majestic Kunlun, and to the snow-capped Yushu Peak. At this moment on the Yushu Peak of the Kunlun Mountains, white snow, a world of ice and snow and a blue sky. It was so close that it seemed as if it could be reached out and touched. Father, why do you have to fight with Kong Taichu? At the level of the two of you, a battle to determine who's stronger and who's weaker will also determine life and death. If anything happens to either of us, wouldn't it be painful for our loved ones and happy for our enemies? Yi Zhantian stood behind Yi Tianren and bowed. His eyes were full of regret and unwillingness. Before Lu Zhenghua died, he cursed Yi Tianren and Jiang Tian. In a battle between two tigers, one of them would fall. This was a sore point for Yi Zhantian. Yi Tianren was his biological father. Blood was thicker than water. He was the goal of his life. Jiang Tian had fought side by side with him many times. He gave him pointers and helped him break through. He was both a teacher and a friend. He was his spiritual mentor. These two people were the most important in his life. He didn't want to see either of them fall. Chapter 831. Zhantian, I've already become a half-step celestial immortal, but I always feel that there is an invisible barrier between heaven and earth that imprisons and suppresses me. I can't surpass this world. Yi Tianren looked at the continuous towering mountains, his eyes filled with vicissitudes of life. The battle with Kong Taichu may allow me to break through this barrier and ascend to the top of the celestial immortal realm. More importantly, it may allow me to learn the ultimate mystery of this world, unravel the mystery of the fall of the immortals, the twilight of the gods, the ancient covenant, and many other ancient mysteries. Kong Taichu is not afraid of nuclear weapons, and he destroyed the universe shield with one palm. I think in this battle you have little chance of winning. Yi Zhantian's face was bitter and worried. At my level, victory and defeat have long been indifferent to me. I just want to see the secrets of the laws of heaven and earth. Heavenly Yi roared with laughter, and he seemed to be extremely heroic and aloof. The elders of Hongmeng and I once inferred that today's earth is likely to be a dead planet abandoned by the ancient sages of earth. We are the abandoned people of God. In the eyes of those godlike sages, the abandoned people of earth are just ants, and they are the soaring eagles. Originally, the eagles were not afraid of ants because ants do not exist in their eyes. The ants are always concerned about grains of rice, broken leaves, and nests. They rarely look up at the blue sky, and they don't even know the existence of the eagles. However, for thousands of years, among hundreds of millions of ants, there are always one or two who look up at the blue sky among the withered branches and leaves. Because they see, they are afraid, and because they are seen, they are afraid. From the perspective of the history of science, the period when the primitive people learned to use stone tools and create nuclear weapons is only 1% of the history of mankind. For millions of years before that, mankind was in a state of ignorance. The speed of development of science and technology has shown a geometrical increase. From the perspective of the history of cultivation, Mankind has not made the slightest progress after they learned how to cultivate. Instead, from the prehistoric times when gods, immortals and humans coexisted in the world, to the Middle Ages when the stars shone brightly, and then to the Age of Doom when the spiritual chi was exhausted and powerhouses were few and far between, the human race was declining step by step. Now cages and fences had enveloped the entire world. This is too abnormal. Xianxia lowered his head and pondered for a long time. Suddenly he raised his head and said with a burning gaze, "In your opinion, is Kong Teichu an ant that looks up at the sky? No, your father is the ant looking up at the blue sky." Yi Tianren stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were so cold that they were almost tangible. In the thousands of years of human history, those cultivators who had the desire to ascend to the heavens and transcend the world were all those awakened ants. Warsky, you said it yourself. Kong Teichu is either a fallen immortal or the reincarnation of a true god. He's an existence that transcends the civilization of this world. Then he will be a god among us ants, even more terrifying than those eagles. Do you know how rare it is to have a chance to meet him? Perhaps only by getting close to Kong Teichu will I have the chance to break the cage of this world. Kong Teichu can even push mankind to a higher level and transcend this world. Yi Zhantian's body trembled when he heard this. His eyes shone with a strange light. He had long known that Yi Tianren's vision was not as narrow as the rumors said. He wanted to break the cage that trapped mankind and ascend to a higher level of life. He wanted to pry into the secrets of this world, not for the sake of winning or losing or glory. All right, I'll contact Master Kong. Without hesitation he took out his satellite phone and dialed a number. Jiang Tian was surprised when he received the call from Yi Zhantian. Your father has come out of seclusion. He wants to fight me in 10 days. A year ago, when Yi Tianren challenged him to a duel, Jiang Tian's interest was piqued. After all, it was one of life's greatest joys to be able to defeat a worthy opponent. But now Jiang Tian was already at Foundation Establishment Level 1. He had the power to kill all immortals and saints. How could Yi Tianren attract his attention? He said resentfully, "Forget it. I'm too busy. I'm not interested in this. I'll pay him a visit some other day and have a chat with him." Master Kong, my father begs you for a duel. This kind of duel is very beneficial to him. Yi Zhantian's tone was almost pleading. All right then. You can accept it for me. Jiang Tian did not seem to mind. He hesitated for a moment and then agreed. I'll be there when the time comes. He did not take this matter to heart. He threw the satellite phone aside and continued to work on the Cultivation system. A few days later, European Union President Jung, Russian Emperor Vladimir Putin, American President Bush, Japanese Prime Minister and many other heads of state. They were invited by the Sidoni government to visit Sidoni for the first time for a secret state visit. Wuxia only sent Secretary Shen, the Red Wall special envoy, to participate. This was Jiang Tian's order. In fact, the chief had wanted to come and take a look himself. Jiang Tian and Wuxia had always been close. This experiment was not targeted at Wuxia. There was no need to alert the leaders who worked hard for the country. It was extremely rare for the leaders of various countries to visit the same country at the same time. Accompanied by Qin Yang, Chancellor Andrew and the others, the leaders visited Sidoni's many industrial parks, Xingyuan Immortal Healing Village, Little Silicon Valley, as well as the Sky Army's naval, land and air bases. They also watched military exercises. Against the backdrop of a weak global economic recovery, Sidoni's booming economy and powerful military force made them envious and shocked. Who would have thought that just a few years ago, this place was still scorched by the flames of war and the people had no way of making a living? Especially President Jung of the European Union. Now the European Union was on the verge of death because of Jiang Tian. He was even more envious. But everyone knew that this wasn't the main event. The main event was to meet Jiang Tian and the first test launch of the Cultivation system. At Tianqing School, Jiang Tian had returned to his normal appearance. His expression was calm and his expression was warm. He wore a plain robe as he met with the leaders of the various large countries. However, the leaders of the superpowers didn't dare to underestimate him. They all bowed to Jiang Tian. After all, apart from the top overlords who had fought with Jiang Tian before, the leaders of the superpowers were the group of people who knew Jiang Tian's strength the best on the planet. After the Gathering of Darkness was destroyed, Jiang Tian had traveled the world and killed thousands of people and many leaders of the tycoons. What was even more terrifying was that Zhang Tian had destroyed the universe shield and killed many superbrains. The Pentagon had to bow down to him. Those who had died were all people who were close to them and were even on the same level as them. It could be said that if Zhang Tian wanted to kill them, he could do it with a snap of his fingers. Everyone, some warmongers, supported the gathering of darkness some time ago and started a war which affected the peace and development of the world. Jiang Tiangao sat on the dragon throne with a bright smile. With your support and cooperation, I went around the world and chased them for thousands of miles. Then I eliminated them. Everyone smiled stiffly and complained in their minds. Who supported you except for Yung? Who cooperated with you? Shame on you. You killed people all over the world and put the security department and the information control department under a lot of pressure. Who did you talk to? However, no one dared to say anything. They just smiled awkwardly. Now let's share the results of the war and enjoy the miserable fate of those traitors who supported the fiend path. Jiang Tian didn't care about what they thought. He laughed and patted the sky-swallowing demon gourd. Rumble. Suddenly, more than 1,000 corpses gushed out of the sky-swallowing demon gourd and landed on the ground outside the hall. The corpses were densely packed and they were in different states. They piled up into a tower of corpses that was more than 12 meters tall. A powerful yin qi spread and a chilly wind blew. Even the sky seemed to have become gloomy and dark. The sky-swallowing demon gourd was a powerful spatial dharma artifact. Even though those corpses had been dead for dozens of days, they still hadn't decomposed at all. They were very fresh and bloody. They were still in the same position they were in the moment before they died. Their expressions were lifelike and clearly visible. They gave off a feeling of malevolence, pain, fear, panic, and despair. When the heads of state saw this, they were all shocked. Their hair stood on end and their faces became incomparably pale. They could not help but tremble. Only the Russian emperor, who was from the KGB, remained calm and composed. Master Kong, you've eliminated these scourges for mankind. This is a blessing for mankind. Ronggu smiled bitterly and said humbly. Jiang Tian was clearly trying to intimidate him, telling him what the consequences of provoking him were. Even if you were a member of the royal family, even if you were rich and powerful, you could only die if you offended Kong Techu. Haha, is that so? I can't do without your support. Old dragon, eat them. Jiang Tianzong laughed and shouted loudly. Master, is there anyone alive to eat? The purple gold true dragon was dozens of meters long and it was emitting a bright purple light. It swayed its head and tail and was overjoyed. It's very fresh. Great, I don't have to go to the high seas to catch people to eat. Dragon. Wuxia's dragon. When the heads of state saw this, they were so shocked that their souls almost left their bodies. Their expressions changed drastically and they almost fell to the ground. Chapter 832. Don't be surprised. I'm just my master's mount. The purple dragon snorted and opened its mouth to devour the corpses. Amidst the crunching sounds, blood spurted out, flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The old dragon chewed and swallowed several corpses into its belly. This was a shocking scene, causing one's mind to be greatly shaken and their hair to stand on end. A giant dragon soared through the air. It looked as if it was cast from purple gold and was dozens of meters long. Its scales seemed to be carved from purple crystals. They were resplendent and emitted a cold light. It could fly on the clouds, speak human language, and eat corpses. It opened its mouth and chewed, sending limbs flying and flesh raining down. Even if these people were dead and didn't scream, they were still the corpses of their own kind. At this time, the heads of state felt like their heads were about to explode. The scene in front of them was too terrifying. Even the battle-hardened Emperor of Russia, who was from the KGB, couldn't withstand the pressure. His legs trembled and he almost wet himself. Don't embarrass yourself here. Look at your greedy face. Jiang Tian scolded with a smile. Master, I'm sorry. I'm too hungry. After all, I haven't eaten a human for a long time. The purple gold true dragon picked up a corpse and swallowed it as it spoke vaguely. I'll take it with me. In the end, the purple dragon swung its tail and a gust of wind swept up the corpses. It flew away on the clouds. It was too terrifying. Inhumane. Everyone was dumbfounded. Cold sweat ran down their backs. At this time, Jiang Tian's cell phone rang. Your Majesty, there is an unruly person asking for an audience. This childish ringtone was recorded by Zhang Tian and she didn't allow Zhang Tian to change it. Zhang Tian took out his cell phone and saw that it was Yi Zhantian. "Excuse me, I need to take this call." Zhang Tian smiled apologetically and picked up the phone. "Master, where are you?" Yi Zhantian said anxiously. "Many colleagues in the martial arts world are waiting for you on the Yushu Peak. Their rations are running out." "The date of the battle is today?" "Yes." Yi Zhantian was speechless. "You've forgotten." He felt a little indignant for his old father. After all, he was an opponent on the same level as you, okay? Zhang Tian was dumbfounded. As soon as he hung up the phone, he threw himself into working with the Kuelian. After all, he was also very passionate and obsessed with refining. He was so engrossed that he forgot to give Sasaki Haisha the time and let him arrange the itinerary. As a result, the battle with Yi Tianren conflicted with the visits of many heads of state. "How about this, you wait for one more day? I'll be there by noon tomorrow," Zhang Tian said. Now that the Kuelian experiment had reached a critical point, Zhang Tian was preparing to extort a large sum of money from the various countries. He could not give up halfway. He calculated that once he finished the Kuelian experiment, he would rush to Wuxia on his flying sword. He should be able to make it in time. "All right then. Master Kong, you can't stand me up this time." Yi Zhantian wanted to cry. "How am I going to explain this to the world? We've been waiting for you for 10 days but you're not coming. This is really troublesome." Celestial Yi maintained a powerful aura and pushed his battle intent to the highest level. He had been waiting for a few hours, but Jiang Taichu still hadn't arrived. "Boss Yi, is it possible that Kong Taichu is too scared to come?" It's no wonder. Jiang Taichu, I don't know what kind of evil Dao he cultivated, but he's just an itinerant cultivator without any foundation. How can he compare to Heavenly Yi? Hundreds of overlords were waiting on the Yushu Peak. Suddenly, a transcendent grandmaster stepped out from the crowd and said disdainfully, "Don't be so stupid." This transcendent grandmaster was called Kai Shaochen. He belonged to the branch of Baji Fist and was also a famous senior. However, he was not talented and had a very high level of enlightenment. He had only reached the transcendent state at the age of 80. Zhang Tian had no enmity with him, they had never even met before. However, ever since Zhang Tian's rise, he had looked down on Zhang Tian and even hated Zhang Tian's guts. There was a reason for this. In the beginning, Zhang Tian was called the young grandmaster on the Wuxia Martial Arts Forum, or the youngest grandmaster in history. As for Elder Kai, she was known as the oldest grandmaster in history. She was always compared to Zhang Tian by some bored fellows. Whenever Zhang Tian made any movements and his cultivation base was mentioned, there would definitely be a sentence behind it. You know, Kai Shaochen reached the transcendent state at the age of 80 and was called a grandmaster. Even if he was 80 years old, reaching the transcendent state at the age of 80 was already an incredible achievement. However, compared to Zhang Tian, he seemed so miserable, so pitiful and so unbearable. Every time he saw this news, Master Kai was so angry that his hands trembled and his high blood pressure almost broke out. Therefore, whether Zhang Tian formed the Heavenly Alliance or the Tianqing School's recruitment, Kai Shaochen did not ask or participate in it. He had been suppressing his anger all this time, waiting for Zhang Tian to die one day. Then he slammed the table and said, "Look, this is the result of being impatient for quick success and having an unstable foundation. No way, how could Kong Taichu be afraid?" At this time, another overlord who was half a step away from the immortal state came out and said in a strange tone, "He's known to be unrivaled in the world. He's so awesome that several great sects were all slaughtered by him. He boasted that he was the most powerful overlord in Wuxia and the top master on the divine roll." How powerful! Besides, he has agreed to the battle with Senior Yi this time. Everyone in the world knows about it. Will he still be kind enough to not come? This half-step deity realm powerhouse's words were also laced with sarcasm, clearly mocking Zhang Tian for fishing for compliments, and for having an undeserved reputation. After all, Zhang Tian did not come. The old man in his 90s was called Zhou Zitao. He was the acting leader of the semi-hidden sect, Dian Song, and Zhou Zishuan's younger brother. Now Zhou Zishuan and the 5 elders were killed by Zhang Tian, which greatly damaged Dian Song's strength. Recently, small sects such as the Tai Chi sect and the 8 Trigram school had repeatedly challenged Dian Song's sect and forced them to give up their Taoist field, which made them flustered and unable to resist. Zhou Zitao hated Jiang Tian to death. Without Kong Teichu, Dian Song sect would still be one of the 6 semi-hidden sections. How could it be humiliated like this? I think Kong Teichu doesn't dare to come. Kong Teichu is arrogant, but it depends on who he is compared to. Compared to Yi Tianren, can he do it? If he can't, then don't agree. He made everyone wait here for half a day. It's so disgusting. On the mountain peak, hundreds of people were discussing, and their faces were full of ridicule and disdain. A person who was not envied was mediocre. On the other hand, heroes were often envied. From 2007 until now, in 4 to 5 years, Jiang Tian had been invincible and had made a name for himself. He alone, and with a sword, he dominated the world with an invincible attitude. He suppressed the heroes of the world and made the overlords of the world bow their heads. It was impossible to say that they were not envious. Jiang Tian was like other people's child, who had become a psychological shadow in many people's hearts. They were unhappy when they thought about it and couldn't sleep peacefully. However, there was nothing they could do about it. Jiang Tian went straight to the 9th heaven and no one could catch up with him. They could only feel unhappy and sullen. But things were different now. Yi Tianren had come out of seclusion. Everyone saw the hope that Kong Teichu would be trampled by Yi Tianren. As the saying went, "I'm better off than you." Harming others without benefiting oneself was a good way to gloat. Hearing these discussions, Yi Zhantian waved his hands and said in a loud voice, "Master Kong is very busy. He will be here in 24 hours. Don't be impatient." Hearing this, everyone could only suppress their impatience and wait patiently. After all, this was the most brilliant battle in the past 1,000 years. It was worth waiting for a while. On Sidoni's side, after putting away the phone, Jiang Tian glanced at the leaders of the major countries and said with a smile, "The dregs of the Covenant of Darkness are rising. The Superbrain and the Celestial Gods Corporation are controlling the United States. I'm very worried. In fact, as far as I know, the Blood Race, the Werewolves, and the Superbrain are not indigenous humans on Earth. They are very likely to be aliens from outer space. I think we need to set our sights a little further and be more vigilant against the extraterrestrial civilizations. In fact, from the first day I built the Cultivation system, it was not to target anyone here. After all, I'm not targeting anyone. In my eyes, everyone here is trash that can't even withstand a single blow." After Jiang Tian said this, the leaders of the major countries present were speechless and wanted to cry but had no tears. "Master Kong, you can't be so mean. We are all leaders of the major countries, the most powerful people in the world. How can we be trash?" The Russian emperor's face showed a trace of unnaturalness. His eyes were cold and the muscles on his cheeks twitched a few times. But in the end he did not dare to refute. The Cultivation system was built to defend against the invasion of alien civilizations and to protect the safety of the entire Earth. Jiang Tian's face was solemn. The next moment he began to complain about being poor. "For this, we spent more than $100 billion US. So now we're embarrassingly short of money." Next to him, Yi Ziwei, who was acting as the translator, was speechless. "A total of $10 billion US, and you're saying 10 times that. You're really greedy." However, at this time she naturally wouldn't interrupt. Instead she translated it smoothly. "This is only the first generation of the Cultivation system. In the future we will build the 2nd generation, 3rd generation and 4th generation." Jiang Tian said unhurriedly. "There's an old saying in Wuxia that a single piece of silk does not make a thread, and a single tree does not make a forest. The creation of this global defense system is not for Sidoni's country, but for the safety of the entire world and the well-being of all mankind. So, I hope that everyone can work together to form a planetary defense plan and work together to protect the Earth. Everyone, there are those who contribute manpower, those who have money, and those who have strength to contribute to this project." Jiang Tian glanced at the crowd and said with a smile, "What do you think?" As soon as Jiang Tian said this, except for Secretary Shen, who was calmly sipping his tea, the faces of the leaders of the major countries present were ashen. They were so angry that they almost flipped the table. Chapter 833. What the fuck? How can you be so shameless? You're creating weapons of mass destruction threatening our national security, and now you're saying that you're defending the Earth? And you want us to pay for it? This is like you want to kill me and I'll hand you a knife. That's ridiculous. Haha, Master Kong, the extraterrestrial civilization is too far away from us after all. The Russian emperor shook his head and said with a resolute and cold expression, I think the current global theme is still the peace and development of the earth. He was indeed a fierce man from the KGB. Since he became the great emperor, he had experienced many wars and was the first to raise an objection. That's right, Master Kong, there's no need to worry too much. President Bush of the United States also deliberated and said, I think the superbrain werewolves and bloodlings are still human beings, but they're just mutated humans. At this time, the new Secretary of Defense behind him, Keynes, winked at Zhang Tian. Master, look, it's more reliable for me to be the president. I'm much more obedient than him. Zhang Tian ignored him. In just a few days, I've pushed you to the position of Secretary of Defense and you're still not satisfied? Master Kong, you're not short of money, President of the European Union Jung said in a low voice with a bitter face. Everyone hasn't recovered from the financial crisis yet. Sidoni's economy is the best in the world. Master Kong, don't cry about being poor. You attacked France once and this time you eradicated the gathering of underworld. When did you not join forces with the Marshall family and the One-Eye Fund to crazily short the euro? When did you not make hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars? President Bush also nodded in agreement. Kong Taechu, you're too greedy. You're really not short of money. You're the person with the most wealth in the history of the world. Now, Rockefeller, the Morgan Consortium and the DuPont Consortium are all yours alone. Besides, the Coelian you built cost $100 billion. Can it really defend the world? A British general interrupted with a smile. You guys are really stupid. After patiently listening to their opinions, Zhang Tian smiled and said, the power of my Coelian is definitely not something you can imagine. All right, I'll show it to you. Zhang Tian smiled faintly and winked at Sasaki Haisa, who was sitting in the audience. Everyone immediately walked out of Tianqing School and took a helicopter to the observation room of the Coelian base 20 kilometers away. It was already dinner time. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Night had fallen. At this moment, the air raid sirens rang throughout Sidoni. There was an announcement. Everyone had to cover their ears, enter the building, open their mouths and stop looking at the Coelian system. The streets of Sidoni, from San Juan to the small cities, had long been empty. There were no cars either. It was like a dead city at the end of the world. Rumble. A clear tremor was felt, as if a magnitude 3 or 4 earthquake had occurred. Everyone felt a little dizzy. Then everyone saw. On the huge Coelian, metal petals bloomed in an orderly manner, revealing the stamen that looked like a beehive. One of the stamens emitted a blue plasma gas that reached a few kilometers high and rushed into the clouds. Even the white clouds were torn apart. It was like a huge fluorescent tube, and people were like ants under the illumination of the fluorescent tube. The following scene would be unforgettable. Suddenly, Jiuxiao Peak and even the entire northern part of Sidoni turned from night to day. A huge blazing white fireball exploded above the Coelian like a supernova. The earth and the mountains were illuminated by the intense sunlight, and every detail was clearly visible. Every blade of grass, every tree, every mountain, and every rock reflected a dazzling halo that made people want to cry. But this time the sky was not blue, but a strange dark purple. The sun above the Coelian was very bright. Even though they were 20 kilometers away, everyone felt itchy on their faces as if there were ants crawling on their faces. This should be because of the ionizing radiation. Everyone, please put on earplugs immediately, open your mouth and give your sunglasses in advance. It's best to close your eyes, otherwise you will go blind. Sasaki Kaisha reminded them loudly. Everyone quickly did as they were told. But after the extremely strong light passed through the eyelids and sunglasses, it was still dazzling, making people feel as if they were immersed in a sea of halo. They covered their eyes with their hands again, but the light still stubbornly penetrated through the gaps of their fingers. After dozens of seconds, the flame disappeared. Everyone slowly took off their sunglasses. They saw that the Coelian's petals had closed, like the eternal flower of the gods standing there quietly. And the white fireball-like thing had burst into the sky and disappeared into the depths of the sea of clouds. At this time, Sasaki Kaisha shouted, "In 1 minute the sound will come, everyone cover your ears." At this time there was a shrill howl like thousands of ghosts. Everyone felt that the ground shook like the skin of a drum, and the dust and gravel on the surface shook up to their knees. This strange howl drilled into everyone's brain through their flesh and bones. Their bodies seemed to be shaken into pieces and collapsed around, leaving only their frightened souls trembling outside. Hide behind the cover, the shock wave is coming. Sasaki Kaisha reminded them again. There's a shock wave? Everyone exclaimed. Yes. Maybe it will weaken to a strong wind here. Sasaki Kaisha said. Everyone ducked behind the cover. Suddenly, the wind whistled around them. Even the helicopter they came in was blown a few meters away, and then dust filled the air. Nothing could be seen around them, and the rubble hit the plane with a crackling sound. This is just the heat wave shock wave formed by the tail flame of the Sky Splitter heavy cannon during the launch. President Bush felt that his soul had left his body and muttered to himself. They were 20 kilometers away from the Kuelian, but they could still perceive the obvious shock wave. Then all the buildings within 10 kilometers would be destroyed. In fact, the area within 10 kilometers of the Kuelian was a military-restricted area. But they still built some buildings to assess the impact of the launch. At this moment, many buildings within a 10-kilometer radius had collapsed and turned into dust. The power was comparable to a small nuclear weapon. The tail flame is so terrifying. What if the warhead explodes? Many leaders of large countries were frightened. While they were talking, there was a loud boom. In the outer space above Sidoni, at an altitude of 36,000 kilometers above sea level. After detecting the existence of the satellites, several explosive crystals installed in the Sky Splitter heavy cannon exploded instantly on Cui Dongxia's array stone. Hundreds of millions of lightning bolts as thick as water tanks blasted out in all directions with an unstoppable momentum. These thunderbolts were the release of the concentrated energy contained in the explosive crystals. They were hundreds of millions of degrees high, and in the vacuum environment, they formed an immeasurable violent pressure. In the sky above Sidoni, 33 geosynchronous reconnaissance satellites launched by the United States fell into a sea of thunderbolts one after another in a few seconds. Under the high temperature and pressure, they instantly turned into a gaseous state. However, the technology of the United States was not to be underestimated. The monitoring data of the satellites at the moment of the explosion was transmitted to the supercomputer in the Pentagon. After a series of analysis and calculations by the supercomputer, 3 minutes later, the Pentagon gave the data of the test explosion. The current effective range was more than 36,000 kilometers. The firing rate was Mach 12 on average. The effective killing radius was 100 kilometers when the explosion occurred. The effective killing area was nearly 400,000 square kilometers, which could cover the entire airspace of Sidoni. The lethality was equivalent to 300 million tons of TNT explosives. When the military technical expert from the Pentagon reported the data to the scene with a trembling voice, the scene was dead silent. Everyone's face was paler than a corpse that had been dead for 3 days. Cold sweat poured out like a small stream. The area of New York is 128,000 square kilometers? President Bush was sweating profusely as he asked the Secretary of State next to him with a trembling voice. Mr. President, you didn't remember wrongly. The Secretary of State replied as if he had lost his parents. This meant that Sidoni could destroy almost 4 states of New York with one shot. Note that this was not New York City, but the entire state of New York formed by New York City and its subordinate towns and villages. Sidoni only needed to fire 30 of these monsters to turn the entire United States into a scorched earth. Nothing would be left alive and everything would be reduced to ashes in an instant. This was the true meaning of the annihilation of a country. Not a single person would be left alive. 300 million tons of equivalent? The Russian Great Emperor Putin froze as if he had been struck by lightning. He only felt a buzzing sound in his head. The little boy that destroyed Hiroshima had a yield of 13,000 tons. How many times was 300 million tons of equivalent? In the international community, the Russian Great Emperor had always been known for his iron fist and ruthlessness. He only felt that his brain had stopped working. He was in a daze and couldn't calculate anything. The largest warhead in the United States is 250 million tons, right? It was carried by the B-36. But it was retired in 1957. The Prime Minister of Japan stared at the sky as if he was looking at a monster. There was a bone-deep fear in his heart. If it was shot at a target on the ground, the lethality would be even higher, far higher. A military expert from the Pentagon said with a pale face. Chapter 834. Nuclear weapons were created by nuclear fission. When the energy was transferred to the air, it would create a high pressure and high temperature which would then be lethal. The Kuelian's test shot was in outer space, so there was no air as a pressure medium. This meant that once the air was used as a pressure medium, the high pressure and high temperature produced by the Kuelian would be immeasurable. It could even level the American continent to the ground. A firing rate of Mach 12? The fastest speed might be over Mach 30? The military expert from Japan screamed exaggeratedly as if he had discovered a new continent. The shot was aimed straight into outer space, so it was out of the Earth's gravity. When it hit the ground, there would be a dive acceleration process and the speed might be doubled. On Earth, the fastest intercontinental missile was only 20 times the speed of sound. This meant that no anti-air weapons could intercept the Kuelian's weapon. Once the speed of sound exceeded 30 times, there was no way any anti-air weapons could intercept it. They would be burned by the high temperature caused by the friction with the air. This also meant that the sky splitter that was shot out now was not made of any known metal on Earth, and no missile could intercept it. The Kuelian has a range of 36,000 kilometers. The best intercontinental missile on Earth has a range of 12,000 kilometers. It's only one-third of its range. European Union President Jung's legs turned to jelly, and he couldn't resist the urge to kneel down before Zhou Xian. The circumference of the Earth is 40,000 kilometers, which means that this thing can basically go around the Earth. It can cover every corner of the Earth and intimidate the whole world. The faces of many heads of state paled and their hearts were filled with shock. They trembled and lost their souls. With this, Sidonie had become the world's most powerful military power. Even the United States was far behind. At this time, Secretary Shen hung up the phone and walked over with a face full of respect. Master Kong, I've just spoken to the chief on the phone. He sincerely congratulates the Kuelian on the success of the test shot. He said seriously, the military is willing to purchase this weapon system. The price is negotiable. The price is negotiable. A hint of vicissitudes appeared in Zhou Xian's eyes as he smiled. I will never forget that I am a descendant of the Yellow Emperor. Sidonie's rapid development is inseparable from the support of our motherland. As soon as these words were spoken, let's do the same for America. 100 billion USD? No problem, we'll buy it. President Bush was so scared that he almost jumped up. After the 20th century, Wuxia's economy developed rapidly and became one of the top economies in the world, comparable to the United States. But in terms of military power, the United States still had the upper hand. But now that Wuxia had the Kuelian, it was a completely different story. America immediately fell to third place and was on the receiving end of a beating. Zhou Xian lazily smiled and said, I'm not short of money. The Kuelian system will not be sold to any country other than Wuxia. This weapon can achieve global defense. You guys pay for it and I will build a few more in Sidonie. As soon as these words were spoken, President Bush and the others looked desperate, as if they had lost their parents. No matter what, they were going to be stabbed. It's fine to build it in your country, but part of the launch rights are in Sidonie's hands. You can't launch it without my permission. Zhou Xian lazily said. Okay. In the end, several heads of state, the most powerful people on the planet, gritted their teeth and nodded. There was no better choice. They had the Kuelian system that was not fully autonomous. In this world, only Sidonie could threaten them. But if they completely lost the Kuelian, other countries with Kuelian could threaten them. Zhou Xian again introduced the power of the Kuelian system to them in detail and reached a preliminary intention of cooperation. In this way, it took another day and night. Zhou Xian looked at the time. If he rushed back to Wuxia, it would probably take 10 hours. At this time, Yi Zhantian called again. Master, where are you? 24 hours have passed. Is your old man in a hurry? After all, Zhou Xian had broken his promise to Yi Tianren first. He said amiably, Sorry, I'm really busy here. You have to let him wait for another 10 hours. I'll buy him a drink later. My old man is not in a hurry. Yi Zhantian explained. But the world's heroes are waiting. There are a lot of people this time, including some of the strongest people in the world. They're all making sarcastic remarks. They're saying that you're afraid of my old man, huh? Yi Zhantian was trying to goad him. Come quickly or your reputation will be ruined. After all, you are now the strongest person in Wuxia. Who told them to wait? Zhang Tian frowned and said impatiently. If they don't want to wait, then get out. Your old man and I are not playing monkeys for them to see. Zhang Tian was not targeting Yi Tianren. He could even guess why Yi Tianren insisted on fighting with him. But Zhang Tian was very unhappy with those so-called onlookers. Who gave them the right to interrupt? Yi Zhantian was speechless. But on second thought, Zhang Tian's words were not wrong. The battle between Zhang Tian and Yi Tianren was between the two of them. Zhang Tian did not sell tickets to make money. The old man was not angry and was waiting patiently. Why were these irrelevant people in a hurry? What did Zhang Tian's tardiness have to do with them? We have to wait for another 10 hours? On Yushu Peak. By the time Yi Zhantian finished speaking, many of the strong people had lost their patience and were about to explode. This Kong Teichu is too much. Does he think the world's heroes are monkeys? Someone said through gritted teeth. I think he's scared. Zhou Zitao shook his head and said with certainty. I heard that Kong Teichu was injured in the battle in the United States. His cultivation level has dropped and he is now a transcendent state cultivator. Kong Teichu attacked the United States and his cultivation level dropped? Most people could not believe it. When it came to the strength of internet control, Wuxia was second to none in the world. Even the Wuxia Warrior Forum was under the surveillance of the Information Management Department. Most of the information was filtered. After all, Zhang Tian's rise had put the credibility of many governments in the world, except for Wuxia, in jeopardy. Only a few big saber brothers and some of the newer martial artists were able to access the dark net and knew the truth. Many martial artists, especially those from semi-hidden sects, were very old-fashioned and did not even use mobile phones. Well, I heard about it from some hidden sources. Zhou Zitao lowered his voice and said mysteriously. I heard that he besieged Kong Teichu at the Universe Shield in the United States and used nuclear weapons. He was almost killed by the explosion. Anyway, he wanted to talk bad about Kong Teichu since he couldn't defeat him. Maybe he could even cause trouble for Kong Teichu. The United States used nuclear weapons. How can Kong Teichu do it? Even if he is an Earth-level deity, he can't withstand it. His cultivation level dropped? I think he lost all his cultivation. He's lucky to be alive. No wonder he didn't dare to come. He's only a transcendent state cultivator and he has lost all his cultivation. When everyone heard this, their expressions changed. They believed it without a doubt and came to a sudden realization. If it were other weapons, no one would believe that Zhang Tian's cultivation level dropped. After all, even an immortal state overlord could withstand a salvo of missiles. No one knew the result of a battle between an Earth-level deity and a modern weapon. But nuclear weapons were different. They were the most powerful weapons on the planet and they had the power to destroy the world. No matter how powerful an Earth-level deity was, he was not a real deity. After all, he was still immortal. How could he withstand a nuclear weapon? I heard about it too. I saw a picture. Kong Teichu vomited blood. At this time, Kai Shaochen also interrupted. If you don't believe me, I'll send it to you. My disciple found it on the dark web overseas. The picture was actually taken by Charlene at the Heavenly Deity Corporation's office and she had posted it on the dark web. At that time, Zhang Tian had swallowed the soul of a superbrain. His Jin Yuan had been affected and he had spat out a mouthful of blood. Although Charlene was afraid of Zhang Tian, she was very angry when she thought of Zhang Tian's arrogant face, so she posted it on the dark web to mock Zhang Tian. It's true. He must be seriously injured. Otherwise, why would he vomit blood? Seeing this, some people were convinced. An immortal state overlord vomiting blood is an extremely dangerous sign. It's almost the same as qi deviation. I'm afraid that Kong Teichu's cultivation level has dropped. He's completely disabled. There were experts who spoke with certainty, speaking with certainty. No matter how strong Kong Teichu is, he's no match for the United States. It's not wise to fight to the death. Someone shook his head regretfully. He doesn't know when to stop. Isn't it good to be aloof? Why does he have to mess with the mortal world and challenge the United States? He's brainless. Someone gloated. For a moment, everyone was talking about all kinds of things. However, most of them were certain that Zhang Tian was doomed this time. He was not qualified to fight with Yi Tianren at all. Chapter 835. However, Yi Zhantian did not express his opinion, nor did he defend Jiang Tian's reputation. It was not that he did not respect Jiang Tian, but it was mainly out of consideration for maintaining the secular order of Wuxia. If people knew that someone could force the United States to bow down and cultivate to the level of nuclear weapons, these martial artists would probably go crazy and learn from Kang Techu to challenge the authority of the country. Jiang Tian and Wuxia have a very deep relationship, but there are many martial artists here who have no regard for the law. When Yi Tianren heard these discussions, he only smiled mockingly and did not give any explanation. At his and Jiang Tian's level, they were almost detached from the world and did not linger on things. Jiang Tian did not need to explain anything. He also did not need to explain anything for Jiang Tian. Not to mention the level of Jiang Tian and Yi Tianren. In fact, even ordinary people should understand that life was full of difficulties and dangers. One must live according to his heart and not care about the opinions of others. Otherwise, living in the eyes of others all the time was one living for oneself or for others. Why would a lion care about the ridicule of these ants? He could not be bothered with them. Jiang Tian returned to Tianqing school and was about to tell his family that he was leaving for Wuxia. But before he could speak, Zhou Xian smiled and said, "Jiang Tian, I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Jiang Tian asked gently. "I'm pregnant." Zhou Xian's beautiful eyes curved into beautiful crescents, flashing with a smile, and her face was full of peace and joy. "What?" Jiang Tian cried out in ecstasy. "I Kang Techu, I'm going to have a child." In his previous life, Jiang Tian was full of guilt and longing for Zhou Xian. No matter how many fairies and empresses came to him, he did not even look at them. He did not even have a cultivation partner, so naturally he did not have a child. After 10,000 years of cultivation and ascending to the throne of the immortal emperor, Jiang Tian still did not have a child of his own. It could be said that in his previous life Jiang Tian had been fighting and killing for 10,000 years, 10,000 years of bloodshed, 10,000 years of honor and glory, but at the same time, 10,000 years of loneliness. In this life, Jiang Tian's parents were still alive and loving, and he even had a child. How could Jiang not be happy? Not excited? Jiang's hands trembling, he gently pressed Zhou Xian's belly. "It's really my child, it's exactly the same aura. Although it's a girl is better. You will become my warm little cotton-padded jacket. I, Kang Techu, I have a child, a child." He raised his head to the sky and shouted. Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of countless people, he jumped several thousand meters into the air. When he landed, he looked at the sky above Sidoni, which was full of dark clouds. Jiang Tian laughed. "I Kang Techu have a child. Why don't you show me the sun?" Whoosh. Suddenly, the dark clouds above Sidoni dissipated, revealing the blue sky. Sunlight poured down. After flying back to Tianqing school, Jiang Tian hugged Qing'e and said with a smile, "Qing'e, I suddenly made a decision. I won't leave." "What do you mean you won't leave?" Zhou Xian was confused and said in surprise, "You mean you won't leave Earth and look for the ruins of immortality?" "Yes." Jiang Tian nodded. "Why?" Zhou Xian could not believe it. After all, Jiang Tian's goal had always been to set foot in the ruins of immortality, find the ancient path of the stars, and reach the outer space where the spiritual energy was more abundant and suitable for cultivation. Because tears floated out of the corners of Jiang Tian's eyes. He was so happy that he was about to cry. "Because I love this land. I love it deeply." In this life his parents were still alive and loving. Now he had a child. At this moment, Jiang Tian was extremely satisfied. He even felt that in these few years he had laughed more and been happier than in the 10,000 years of his previous life. Jiang Tian decided not to leave. On Earth the spiritual energy was exhausted. Then he would find a way to kill his way to the ruins of immortality, take back the spiritual energy and revive the spiritual energy on Earth. He would even conquer the Sea of Stars, plunder the entire universe and build Earth into a cultivation planet that dominated the universe. He would build it into the most beautiful home for his wife and children. Wouldn't that be perfect? The Sea of Stars. Of course he would conquer it. However, Jiang Tian's train of thought was different from before. It turned out that he wanted to take his family and kill their way to the depths of the universe and never come back. Now he had a home. Earth was the home of him, his wife, and his daughter. It was their most beautiful home. That's not bad. After hearing this, Zhou Xian beamed with joy. What women needed most was companionship. If Zhang Tian stepped into the ruins of immortality, he might not be able to take her with him. That would be another difficult separation. Honey, don't move. I'll cook some nourishing food for you. Zhang Tian carefully supported Zhao Xueqing to sit on the round chair, afraid that she would bump into something. Look at how nervous you are. I was pregnant when you came back from the sword tomb last time. It's only been less than 2 months. Zhao Xueqing couldn't help but pout, but she was still very happy. Her husband was making such a fuss over nothing. That was because he loved her deeply. You and the child can't be harmed in the slightest. Zhang Tian was serious. Then he scratched his head. What should I eat? Tiger meat? Venison? The level is too low. You have to have dragon liver and phoenix marrow. But on Earth. Master, you have to go. The spirit chi on Earth is too weak. The ruins of immortality is better. Suddenly, the purple gold true dragon swam over leisurely and said with a pleading face. Old man, you still can't be tied down by love. Dragon meat. Zhang Tian didn't seem to hear the purple gold true dragon's suggestion at all. He slapped his thigh and stared at the purple gold true dragon with green eyes. Isn't this ready-made dragon meat? Master, what do you want to do? The old dragon was so scared that sweat broke out on his forehead and his hair stood on end. Why did the master's eyes look so similar to the way he looked at his human pet? Come here. Zhang Tian stepped into the air and rode on the old dragon's neck. He punched the old dragon until he was dizzy. His eyes were cold and he shouted fiercely, have some self-awareness. Cut a piece of meat for your mistress to eat. Otherwise I'll kill you, freeze you and eat you slowly. Master, I'm too old. My meat is very hard. It doesn't taste good. The old dragon was so scared that he almost cried. He looked at Zhao Xueqing pleadingly. Zhao Xueqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said coquettishly, Zhang Tian, you've gone too far. The old dragon is our pet. Did you kill your pet and eat it? That's too inhumane. Do you know about prenatal education? Babies can now perceive the information around them. You're so fierce and vicious. It's easy for our baby to be mentally unhealthy. That makes sense. I want to be an excellent father. Zhang Tian praised. He slapped his head and let go of the old dragon, telling him to get lost. Thank you, mistress, for saving my life. Thank you, master, for not killing me. I'll go find some tigers, leopards, or something for mistress and the baby to eat. The purple gold true dragon was very grateful to his mistress and made up his mind. During this time he definitely couldn't come to see Zhang Tian again. He had to take a detour. What if he was secretly killed by Zhang Tian and eaten by Zhao Xueqing? Who could he reason with? Half an hour later, Zhang Tian made a table of delicious dishes and brought them to Zhao Xueqing. His culinary skills were not to be trifled with. His divine sense was comparable to that of a 5-star chef. Come, little sweetheart, eat. His smile was as warm as the spring sun, and his voice was so gentle that it could melt an iceberg. We're an old married couple and you're still calling me little sweetheart. Zhao Xueqing blushed when she heard that. She put down the book 300 Pregnancy Knowledge Questions in her hand and pouted coquettishly. It was her first time being a mother. She had no experience, so she had to read and learn. For a long time Zhang Tian had been bravely advancing and conquering the world. It was not enough to accompany her. Now she felt as if she had returned to the best days of her life, and she had regained the warmth and passion between husband and wife. The book also said that mother-to-be should not worry about the parent-child relationship affecting the relationship between husband and wife. More often than not, it would improve the relationship between husband and wife. Sure enough. You'll always be my little sweetheart in my heart. Zhang Tian said in a mushy voice. Humph, even if you beat me to death, I won't tell you that I was just talking about my daughter. After the meal, Zhang Tian stayed by Zhao Xueqing's side. They took a walk in the sect, enjoyed the scenery, listened to the songs and chatted. He was so happy that his mouth cracked open from time to time and he laughed like a fool. Before he knew it, the lights were on. Shoo. It's not hot anymore, eat. Zhang Tian was feeding Qinger porridge. He blew on the porridge, touched it with his lips and fed it spoonful by spoonful to Qinger. Suddenly his cell phone rang again. Your Majesty, there is an unruly citizen requesting an audience. This unruly citizen was Yi Zhantian. He said pitifully, Master Kong, why aren't you here yet? On Yushu Peak, the entire martial arts world of Wuxia is about to explode. In addition, there are many world-class giants constantly pouring into Wuxia, which will cause instability. Take it that I'm begging you, please come back quickly. Everything will be fine after the fight. Jiang Tian was stunned. He was so happy that he forgot about the battle with Yi Tianren. At this time he said unhurriedly, I don't have time. I'm not going to fight. Chapter 836. You don't want to compete anymore? Master Kong, are you kidding me? Zhantian was dumbfounded. This battle of the century was the focus of everyone's attention. Overlords from all over the world were here. They had been waiting for 2 days and 2 nights. But now you don't want to compete anymore? Fellow cultivator Jiang. Are you so arrogant that you think the old man is not qualified to compete with you? Hearing this, Yi Tianren was a little angry. He snatched the satellite phone and said angrily, Overlords from all over the world are waiting for you. You refused again and again, and now you don't want to compete anymore. Have you forgotten the 3-year agreement with the old man? Aren't you afraid that the heroes of the world will criticize you for going back on your word? Yi Tianren couldn't help but be angry. Who wouldn't be angry if this happened to them? In the new era of the Republic of China, he was the most powerful man in all of Wuxia. He was also the last person to reach the top of the divine list of the Holy See before it closed. People like Wang Chongyan, Miyamoto Geniki, and Zeus were not even worthy of carrying his shoes. Even the leaders of semi-hidden sects like Dian Song Gu Wudong and the Tianshan sect had to be careful when they saw him. He had dominated the martial arts world of Wuxia for a century. In the martial arts world of Wuxia, he was the most powerful man except for Kunlun. He had made an agreement with Jiang Tian 3 years ago in Dongyang, and Jiang Tian had also agreed before. But now Jiang Tian didn't want to compete and made him wait for 2 days in vain. Jiang Tian was too arrogant. What hero of the world? He's just a coward. Jiang Tian frowned and said unhappily, If they want to poke at my spine, let them. My spine is very strong, I'm not afraid of being poked. I'll just treat it as a massage. Bullshit. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Nothing in the world is more important than feeding porridge to my wife. Jiang Tian coldly hung up the phone. When he faced Zhao Xueqing, he had a gentle smile on his face. Come, sweetheart, have some porridge. While Jiang Tian and Qing'er were being affectionate, the martial arts world of Wuxia and even the world of cultivation was in an uproar. Kong Teichu tore up the 3-year contract and hid in Tianqing school. He didn't dare to compete with Yi Tianren. When the news came out, many people on Yushu Peak were dumbfounded. Why didn't Kong Teichu compete? This doesn't fit his personality at all. Many experts were puzzled and didn't dare to believe it. Since Kong Teichu's debut, he had been invincible and had never been defeated in 100 battles. He was as strong as a dragon and had suppressed the world's martial arts world. When had he ever flinched? He was injured in the United States and his cultivation level dropped drastically. He's already an iron body cultivator. Kai Shaochen, the oldest guru in history, said with certainty. He's not even worthy of being my disciple and he wants to compete with Yi Tianren? This is simply the biggest joke in the world. He flicked his sleeves, his eyes full of arrogance, and sighed leisurely. This is the consequence of being too eager for instant success and an unstable foundation. Cool. Damn, I've waited for 4 years and I finally have the chance to say this. I've been holding it in for so long that I've suffered internal injuries. Originally, he was just talking bad about Jiang Tian. He didn't know if Jiang Tian was really injured and his cultivation level dropped sharply. But when he said this, he was a little convinced by this inference. Not only did he believe it, but most of the people who were paying attention to this battle also believed it. Kong Teichu was so arrogant and looked down on everything. How could he swallow his anger? There was no other explanation except that his strength was not good enough. Because Jiang Tian's explanation for ending this battle was, nothing is more important than feeding porridge to my wife. Did you hear that? Was that something a human would say? Feeding porridge to his wife. Can't he feed her at any time? Then Zhou Zitao jumped out and roared at the sky. Kong, did you come back? I want to avenge my brother. He conveyed the challenge through Wu Yingxiong, the overlord of the southwest, who was familiar with Jiang Tian. However, Jiang Tian still refused. I'm with my wife. I don't have time to go back to Wuxia. If he wants to challenge me, ask him to come to Sidoni. Hearing this, everyone was even more certain. Zhou Zitao was only half a step away from the immortal state. However, Jiang Tian still didn't dare to come out to fight, which further confirmed the fact that Jiang Tian was seriously injured and his cultivation level had dropped to the transcendent state. No, he was only an iron body cultivator. He had no cultivation level at all and was about to die. Sai Kang Teichu can't do it anymore. The former most powerful overlord in the world has become an ordinary transcendent state overlord. How sad. Someone lamented regretfully. This is what happens when you don't know when to stop. Challenging the United States, haha. Are you happy now? An overlord shook his head and said. For a moment there were those who mocked, those who looked on coldly, those who gloated, those who disdained and those who were confused. In the end, the overlords who had been waiting on the Yushu Peak for several days left angrily and were extremely disappointed. The news spread on the dark web forum and many international tycoons also believed it. He doesn't dare to compete with Yi Tianren. I'm afraid he really can't do it. The overlord on the divine role has fallen. Kang Teichu's era is over. Someone lamented regretfully. In fact, when the news of the United States using the neutron bomb broke out, many people thought that even if Jiang Tian could withstand it at that time, there would be endless troubles in the future. After all, nuclear radiation could exist for a long time and it wouldn't fade away for decades. Take the Chernobyl nuclear power plant for example. Even decades after the accident, it was still a barren no-man's land. If people wanted to go there, they would be exposed to nuclear radiation and couldn't withstand it. Although Jiang Tian didn't die at that time, how would he deal with the nuclear radiation later? In Yanjing, Chen Zifan, Lin Fengmian, Qin Zhong and the other family heads of the 6 major martial arts families were facing a formidable enemy and were secretly plotting. It seems that Master Kong is really going to die. We have to do something. Chen Zifan said worriedly. Everyone looked very uneasy. Yi Tianren killed a lot of people in Wuxia back then. Who dared to not submit to him? When Yi Tianren was in seclusion, they had joined by Tianlei and his wife and supported the Condor team. They wanted to replace the Huaxiaolong formation and suppress him a lot. Now that the domineering Yi Tianren came out of seclusion, would he let them go? Zifan, aren't you being too cautious? Master Kong and Yi Zhantian are very close. He said that he would let bygones be bygones. Qin Zhong comforted. But Yi Tianren is his father. Now that Yi Tianren is going to attack Jiang Tian, he won't side with Jiang Tian. Chen Zifan snorted. When Lei Hao and Hong Mei were dominating Huaxia during the day, you all killed a lot of people here. I'm afraid that now we have to break with Jiang Tian to show our loyalty to Yi Tianren. Sai, if that's the case, we will be seen as two-faced. Lin Fengmian said gloomily. Qin Zhong shook his head and sighed. Sai, Master Kong is too reckless. Why did he have to fight with the United States? This is great. How about we go to Sidoni to visit Master Kong and see how he is doing? Lin Fengmian suggested. Chen Zifan called Sasaki Haisha and asked for a visit. Naturally he was rejected. Jiang Tian was with his wife. How could he have time to talk to them? If he doesn't want to see us, something must have happened. Chen Zifan's face was dark and his voice was heavy. In the end they could not sit still anymore. They all looked at Yi Tianren and tried to find out what was going on. Yi Zhantian, who received them, was also helpless. How could Grandmaster Jiang fall? How could his cultivation drop? These are all false rumors. You must not listen to slanderous words and panic yourselves. And don't try to suppress Master Kang's power in Huaxia. Otherwise I will not let you off the hook. Chen Zifan nodded and bowed. Don't worry, bossy. We will not do anything stupid in the future. We followed the Bai family because we were deceived. I hope Master Yi can understand. Yi Zhantian waved them away. After they left, Lin Fengmian asked. What do you think Yi Zhantian meant? It doesn't look like he's faking it. Haha, this is called luring the snake out of its hole. He's testing us. The Yi family has always dominated Huaxia. How could they let Jiang Tian have the upper hand? Chen Zifan sneered as if he had the pearl of wisdom in his hand. In the Yangtze River, each new generation excels the previous one. The next 100 years belong to the Yi clan. Jiang Tian has lost his cultivation. I'm afraid Tianqing School is not going to make it either. I don't care what you decide. I will withdraw my investment immediately. In the Han family of Yanjin, Han Daod was patiently asking Han Qingli for details. Qingli, what do you think of Jiang Tian in America? Was he really not hurt when the neutron bomb exploded? If he was hurt, your daughter would have been turned into a pile of minced meat. Han Qingli sneered. The rumors are all nonsense. Dad, don't believe them. But now Lin Fengmian's family and other martial arts families have announced that they have broken with Kong Teichu and withdrawn their investment from Sidoni. Han Dao was worried. They are not fools. They are real martial arts masters. I don't think they made the wrong choice. Chapter 837. Qin Zifan was the first to announce that he supported the Yi family in Yanjin and left Kong Teichu and Tianqing school. Then the other martial arts families in Yanjin followed suit. At the moment, only a few core members of Jiang Tian's family, the Hu Qingtian family, the Zhao Yuankuan family and the Wei Faiolong family remained silent. Even the Wu Yingxiong family in the southwest and the Yi Wudao family in Jiangxia chose to stand on Yi Tianren's side. By then the news had gradually spread to the secular world. The entire Wuxia upper-class society was in a state of panic. Even the magnates were sitting on pins and needles, trying to find out what was going on. Back then, Kong Teichu replaced by Tianlei and other martial arts families and became the martial arts arbiter, killing everyone in Yanjin. How many people had died and how many families had been destroyed? How much of a change of interests was that? Until then, Yi Tianren had been in seclusion for 20 years and his strong return would certainly stir up a storm. He might even lose his head. Yi Tianren was even more ruthless than Jiang Tian. Before the founding of the People's Republic, Yi Tianren crossed the river on a reed and killed the entire martial arts community in Wuxia in the 1990s. Patriarch, I think Master Kong is fine and his power must still be there. Wu Qingtian, Zhao Yuankuan and Wei Faiolong haven't said anything, have they? Big Blade brother Zhang Shisan interrupted. Wu Qingtian and the other two are Jiang Tian's disciples and their families have moved to Sidoni. Even if they wanted to choose themselves, they couldn't do it. Han Dao shook his head and said, Dad, just listen to me this once. Grandmaster Zhang won't have any problems. Han Qingli was a bit annoyed and said anxiously. She didn't know martial arts, but she had seen Jiang Tian fight with the Overlord of the Universe shield at close range. That kind of visual experience had a great impact on her and she almost blindly believed that Jiang Tian was invincible. Good. Since that's the case, we'll stand on Kong Teichu's side this time. Han Dao pondered for a moment and made up his mind. But don't take any stance. Just wait and see. Master, please refute the rumors. Ever since you didn't challenge Yi Tianren a month ago, the rumors have become more and more outrageous. Everyone is saying that you've lost all your cultivation. Sasaki Haisa held his laptop and looked at the news on the forum, feeling depressed. Your mouth is on someone else's body. You can say whatever you want. Do you think they deserve it? Jiang Tian, who was lying on Qing'er's belly, listened to the movements and said calmly. He didn't care about how the world of the strong viewed him. He didn't care about the rumors and slanders outside. It was just like the neighbor's 8-year-old child saying that you were poor. Could you show him the real estate certificate? Besides, the joy of Qing'er's pregnancy had already made him forget himself. He was too satisfied. Whoever wanted the title of the world's #1 expert could have it. In any case, he just wanted to be a quiet and handsome dad. I'm just worried that something will happen to the two branches of ancient Wudong and Shenong school. Some people have always bullied the weak and feared the strong. Now Tang Linglong and Shen Mange have both gone back to hold down the fort. Sasaki Haisa had considered everything thoroughly. I think that you guys have experienced too little tempering. It's also a good thing that something has happened. Jiang Tian laughed. Fighting and killing was also a part of cultivation. Tang Linglong, Shen Mange and the other disciples had experienced too little fighting. Sasaki Haisa was also very helpless about this. He could only sigh. However, during this period of time, Jiang Tian had not only been accompanying Qing'er. He hadn't been idle. Jiang Tian had refined many artifacts that he had obtained from the Dark Parliament and the Celestial God Corporation. Angel's wings, sacred blood robe, divine bone scepter, sinew of the evil dragon. These were all quasi-spirit treasures. There was even a spirit treasure. It was the accumulation of the Dark Parliament's thousands of years of plundering in the world. Some of them were even looted from the Holy See. Even in sects like Amei and ancient Wudong, they were still very rare. It had been more than 4 years since he had been reborn on Earth. but he had still not seen such rich reserves. If these things fell into the hands of a master refiner, they could even be refined into artifacts that could kill golden core cultivators. However, the techniques of the blood race and holy sea were too crude. They could only refine quasi-spirit treasures. With my methods, I should be able to refine a batch of real spirit treasures for the disciples to use. Jiang Tian's eyes flickered as ideas sprouted one after another. A few days later, after a sacrificial refining, Jiang Tian quickly erased all the Dharma power and soul energy on the artifacts and formed his own talismans and Tao patterns for the disciples to use. When these spirit treasures were distributed, all the disciples were shocked. Everyone's combat strength increased rapidly. Dharma artifacts and Dharma treasures were, after all, external forces. Improving one's own cultivation was the foundation of everything. How could Jiang Tian ignore this aspect? He had obtained more great medicines and spiritual herbs in the Sword Tomb. After all, that was the place where celestial immortals fell. It contained far more treasures than any powerful organization in the world. It was also protected by arrays, so it had not been seriously damaged for hundreds of years. Later, after a day of the imprisonment array, time accelerated. Those great medicines were matured again, and the medicinal properties they contained had reached an unimaginable level. Jiang Tian used the fastest speed to refine many pills that were suitable for the disciples' physiques. He gave them to Zhao Xueqing, Huang Linger, Huqing Tian, Zhao Yunkuan, Wei Feilong, and many other disciples. Zhao Xueqing and Huang Linger both had good aptitude and comprehension. If they broke through 1 or 2 more times in 2 months, Qing'er might even break through to the Foundation establishment realm. Huqing Tian and the others were less talented. It might take them a year and a half to refine the medicinal properties and break through to the immortal realm. However, Jiang Tian was not in a hurry. The last time they broke through to the immortal realm, it was Jiang Tian who forcefully enlightened them. In just a month or 2 they quickly broke through to the half-step immortal realm. If they broke through so quickly, their foundation would be unstable. It was better to let them comprehend and break through on their own. Time flowed by like sand between one's fingers. Soon 2 months had passed. The 2012 Spring Festival was approaching. Zhao Xueqing's lower abdomen was slightly bulging. "Hubby." On this day, Zhao Xueqing suddenly exclaimed. "What?" Jiang Tian asked with a smile. "That stinky girl actually kicked me." Zhao Xueqing touched her belly and said in surprise. "Really? How dare he kick my wife? See if I don't spank him." Jiang Tian touched Zhao Xueqing's belly and felt his daughter kicking vigorously. He was very interested and said with a smile, she's so cute. She's so bad-tempered just like me." Zhao Xueqing's face suddenly showed a hint of disappointment and said, "Jiang Tian, I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Jiang Tian asked with a smile. "I want to go back to Wuxia, go back to my hometown and sweep my mother's grave." Zhao Xueqing said softly, "I haven't swept my mother's grave for many years." Her beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of sadness. "When I was young, she was seriously ill. She once told me that when I got married and got pregnant, I must tell her. But I haven't done it yet. Also, I want to live in my hometown for a while. That's where I grew up." "Then let's go back," Jiang Tian said with a smile. Zhao Xueqing rarely mentioned her mother's relatives. According to that girl Zhao Qianru, ever since her mother passed away, she had never visited her grandfather's family. It seemed that their relationship was very ordinary. However, there was one thing that Jiang Tian had always been a little puzzled about. Qing'er had the stainless phoenix immortal body, which was one of the 13 strongest immortal bodies in the cultivation world. Even in the cultivation world, it was very rare. It might not be possible to give birth to one in thousands of years. There was no need to talk about Zhao Huqing. He was just an ordinary person. What kind of bloodline did Qing'er's mother have to be able to give birth to a physique like Qing'er's? Therefore, Jiang Tian also wanted to meet the people on Qing'er's mother's side and see who they were. Moreover, the Kuelian system that Wuxia had ordered had already begun the basic planning, debugging, and installation. Chao Shixiang and Secretary Shen represented the central government and repeatedly invited Jiang Tian to go back and have a look to discuss cooperation with Sidoni in many fields. Jiang Tian had to give them face. In addition, the Amei sect leader Hao Taichong had been killed by him. The position of sect leader had been empty for now. No one was in charge of such a large sect. He couldn't let a group of pitiful children lose their mother. Jiang Tian planned to send Huang Linger to take charge. There should be a few incomplete maps of the ruins of immortality in the Immerse sect. Jiang Tian hadn't taken them back yet. Thinking about it, there were quite a lot of things to do when he returned to Wuxia. Therefore, Jiang Tian's plan was quickly formulated. The private plane flew directly to Beijing. He would first meet his relatives in Beijing, talk to them and take a look around. Jiang Zhixing returned to Wuxia to submit his resignation. Zhang Wanqing also returned to Beijing for the Spring Festival. She hadn't been back for a long time. Speaking of which, after Qing'er got pregnant, Zhang Wanqing and her husband still didn't know. He didn't know how happy she would be if she knew. Then he would go to Qing'er's birth mother's hometown to pay respects to her birth mother and sweep her grave. Finally, he would go to Mount Immerse in Sichuan province to suppress the Immerse sect. Jiang Tian didn't bring many people with him. Other than Huang Linger, who was going to Mount Shu to take charge of Immerse, he only brought Sasaki Haisha. Other than that, he brought the old dragon with him. This guy said that Wuxia was the territory of the dragon race. Maybe a beautiful female dragon would appear. He wanted to go to Wuxia and see if he could meet his partner for the rest of his life. Don't even think about getting single. Jiang Tian felt that there wasn't much hope. After he was reborn, he lived in Wuxia for several years and didn't see a dragon. He guessed that the old dragon would be single for the rest of his life. But the old dragon didn't agree. It acted coquettishly in front of Zhou Xian every day. Zhou Xian persuaded Jiang Tian, and Jiang Tian could only agree. However, the size of its original body was too scary. If people saw it, they would be scared to the point of going crazy. Fortunately, the old dragon now cultivated some spells. Although it couldn't transform into a human form, it could still transform into a dog or a lizard. In the end, the old dragon became a big black dog. Although it consumed more magic power because of the different races, there was no other way. Only dogs and cats could pass through Wuxia's border. Transforming into a lizard couldn't pass the border inspection. Jiang Tian called the old dragon Buttface, all the way, which made the purple gold old dragon so angry that it teared up. "Master, I'm a dragon. You're hitting me hard like this. It's affecting my mental health." In the end, the old dragon couldn't take it anymore. It jumped out of the plane and turned into a giant dragon lying on the plane. It was quite eye-catching. After more than 10 hours of flight, the magnificent Gulfstream G550 private plane crossed the sky and slowly landed at the Capital International Airport. After nearly a year, Jiang Tian once again set foot on Wuxia's territory as the sect master of Sidoni Tianqing School. Chapter 838. A moment later, Jiang Tian, Zhou Xian, Huang Linger, and Sasaki Kaisha got off the Gulfstream G550 together. Originally, Jiang Tian was comparable to a country's head of state. It was almost a state visit. It was not too much for the head of state to pick him up in person. But it was precisely because he knew this. Jiang Tian, who didn't like red tape, didn't inform the big shots at all. Sasaki Kaisha only informed Xianxia to pick him up. It was enough to have a place to stay and save too much trouble. What about the airport ferry? Sasaki Kaisha asked an airport staff next to him. It was also because Jiang Tian didn't want to make a big fuss, so he didn't let Xianxia drive to the airport, but took the airport's public ferry. "Oh, sorry, the airport's ferry is a little tight. You can walk there," the airport staff said casually. Sasaki Kaisha was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He whispered angrily, "Are you kidding me? We are a private plane. The route fee and parking fee include the ferry service. Call your airport manager here." At this time, a fat man with a head full of fat came over and said with a smile, "I'm sorry, the ferry is really tight. We can refund this part of the fee, including the liquidated damages. Do we lack that money? What we want is service." Sasaki Kaisha was so angry that his face turned pale and he shouted angrily. The weather was cold. Zhou Xian was pregnant, and it was a critical time to prevent miscarriage. How could there be any accident? "I'm sorry, we can't serve you." Zhou Xian, the airport manager, looked proud. "We can't serve you. Do you know who this is?" Sasaki Kaisha was so angry that he almost hit someone. He pointed to Jiang Tian and said, "It's your honor to serve him. Just one word from him and you can be removed from your post and investigated." "I know who it is. Cultivate." Zhou Xiaoxiang smiled contemptuously and turned away. But I'm sorry, we can't serve you and we don't want to serve you. Bastard, I'll kill you. Sasaki Kaisha was so angry that he almost pulled out the long sword on his back. Forget it. Jiang Tian waved his hand to stop him and said with divine sense, don't kill people and ruin my prenatal education plan. Let's go. With a daughter, Jiang Tian's mentality was much more peaceful and merciful. His anger was almost swept away, and he didn't want to argue with such a nobody. With that, he and Huang Linger supported Zhao Xueqing as they walked toward the VIP passage. Sasaki Kaisha could only suppress his anger and followed. After Jiang Tian left, Zhou Xiaoxiang smiled coldly and said, haha, this is Jiang Taichu, the number one person, the number one powerhouse. Rubbish. Rubbish. If I don't give him face, he won't dare to do anything to me. What number one expert? Manager, it sounds very powerful. A few staff members beside him asked. Don't ask what you shouldn't. But now he is. Zhou Xiaoxiang's face was full of disdain, and there was hatred in his eyes. He was related to Jiang Tian. He was the brother-in-law of Qin Zhong, the head of Yinjing's martial arts family. However, he wasn't Qin Zongheng's uncle. He was the uncle of Qin Shaoxiong, who was crippled by Jiang Tian in Jinling. On the day of Su Shiji and Ming Yao's wedding, the wedding cars collided with Ghost Kick's funeral team. Qin Shaoxiong stood up for Su Shiji, and was beaten into a vegetative state by Jiang Tian. He was still lying in the ward. At that time, Zhou Xiaoxiang saw it with his own eyes. He was so scared that he almost peed. Kong Teichu was too ruthless. He was a vice chairman of a central enterprise and he was a big shot in Yenjing. But because Qin Shaoxiang lost his power, his status in House Qin dropped and he was abandoned. Being a small manager in charge of ground service at Beijing Airport was only equivalent to being a divisional leader. Zhou Xiaoxiang was too angry. He had always hated Jiang Tian. But he didn't have the chance to take revenge. Jiang Tian could crush him with just a hair. However, he didn't give up. He had been paying attention to Jiang Tian's news. People like Zhou Xiaoxiang were too far away from the top. He could only ask around. He also registered accounts in Super's Forum, Secrets of Humans and other forums that specialized in superpowers. So he could get some second-hand news. This time he was so happy when he heard that Jiang Tian's cultivation dropped and he became a cripple. He wanted to celebrate. Now that he saw Jiang Tian coming over, he couldn't help but make fun of him. I have to report this to young Master Qin Zongheng. He had an idea and called Qin Zongheng's secretary, saying that he had something important to report. It was very urgent. 5 minutes later, the call went through. Qin Zongheng's cold voice came through. What's the matter? Young Master Zongheng, Kong Teichu is back. Zhou Xiaoxiang said excitedly. What? He's back. Qin Zongheng was shocked. Jiang Taichu had actually returned. Could it be that his cultivation base hadn't decreased? Was he going to engage in a heaven-shaking battle with Celestial Leaf? He immediately broke out in cold sweat. He was relatively close to Jiang Tian. He knew how fierce and ruthless Jiang Tian was. Now that the Qin family had surrendered to Yi Tianren, left Tianqing School and betrayed Kong Teichu, they might be doomed. Yes, he's back. But he really doesn't seem to have any cultivation. Zhou Xiaoxiang said softly. I purposely made fun of him. He didn't even have the courage to refute me. Really? Qin Zongheng rolled his eyes and said in a low voice, this is too important. Test him again. I understand. Zhou Xiaoxiang hated Jiang Tian to begin with. Moreover, he now had young Master Qin's support. He hung up the phone and immediately called the management of the VIP channel. Sir, madam, I'm sorry. The VIP channel is under repair. You're not allowed to pass through or use it. Jiang Tian and the others braved the cold wind to walk to the airport's VIP channel. Unexpectedly, they were stopped by a few security guards. We're Sidoni's private plane. We have the right to use the VIP channel. Sasaki Haisha was anxious and argued. Even though Zhao Xueqing was a cultivator, she could not escape the natural law of pregnancy. She walked a few kilometers. Her waist and legs were sore and weak. Moreover, she was vomiting. It was very uncomfortable. I'm sorry. The channel is under repair. There's no room for negotiation. Even if the Heavenly King comes, it's not allowed. The security guards received Zhou Xiaoxiang's call. At this time they were impartial. Forget it. Let's go through the normal channel. We're not far away anyway. Seeing Sasaki Haisha's angry eyebrows and her murderous look, Zhou Xueqing hurriedly smiled and gently persuaded her. Although Jiang Tian felt sorry for Zhou Xueqing, he did not say anything. He channeled a stream of true essence into Zhou Xueqing's body to nourish her body. Then he supported Zhou Xueqing and walked toward the normal channel. Within the borders, Jiang Tian had always avoided killing people if he could. The key was that Zhou Xueqing forbade him from killing people. She claimed that it was not good for her daughter's prenatal education. That murderous aura would affect her daughter's mental health. Jiang Tian did not want to make Zhou Xueqing unhappy. Isn't this Jiang Tian? Jiang Tian and the others had just entered the normal channel. At the entrance of the VIP channel, a beautiful figure wearing a white trench coat, khaki casual pants and high heels appeared. She looked at Zhou Xiaoxiang and the security guards with a half-smile. Manager Zhou, do you know who he is? He's not allowed to go through the VIP channel? He's a big shot here. If Jiang Tian was here, he would recognize an old friend, Yan Jianfan's daughter, Yan Di. Yan Jianfan and his wife and Jiang Zhixing and his wife were university classmates. The two families had a good relationship. Jiang Tian and this woman could be said to be childhood sweethearts. In high school, Yan Di even tutored him. After the two of them graduated from university, she, who was about the same age, even went on a blind date with Jiang Tian. Back then, Jiang Tian was in Qixia County adjusting feng shui and suppressing Master Su Hui. Yan Di was there. At that time, she was impressed by Jiang Tian. After that, Yan Di was especially interested in feng shui, Xianxia and other strange people. She also became the owner of the Human Mystery Forum, collecting and researching spells, martial arts and superpowers everywhere. During the time when Jiang Tian was in Jinling. After having a certain understanding of the martial arts world, Yan Di, who used to study in France and was open-minded, repeatedly invited Jiang Tian to meet her. However, Jiang Tian refused to meet her. He didn't even pick up her phone. Later on, she was anxious and even asked Su Ruoqing to warn her. This made Yan Di feel defeated. Her self-esteem was shattered and she resented Jiang Tian. Miss Yan, he's done for. I heard that he's lost all his cultivation and has become a cripple. Zhou Xiaoxiang was still very respectful to Yan Di. Yan Di was the owner of the forum and the two of them had met offline a few times. Yan Di was now living in Yanjing. She was married and quite well. Her husband was the young master of the Li family in Yanjing, backed by a top influential family in Yanjing. The Li family had a lot of influence in the general administration of customs, and they also did some foreign trade. Therefore, Zhou Xiaoxiang explained with a smile and even told him about Qin Zongheng's orders. It seems that those rumors are true. After hearing Zhou Xiaoxiang's words, Yan Di had some understanding in her heart. If not, how would Qin Zongheng and Zhou Xiaoxiang dare to offend Jiang Tian like this? If it wasn't true, given Jiang Tian's temper, he would have started a massacre long ago for the other party to offend him in such a manner. Think about how Jiang Tian dealt with Qin Shaoxiong and Su Shiji. He beat the two of them until they were in a vegetative state and their limbs were shattered. Looking at the current situation, it was obvious that Jiang Tian was really done for. He could only be bullied and humiliated. He didn't even have the courage to fight back. He used to be the number one person, the number one on the Grandmaster Divine list, but now he has fallen from the altar. I'm afraid there will be 10,000 feet stepping on him. Yan Di's face was full of disdain. She shook her head in disdain and said, he doesn't know how to be a person. His EQ is too low. He's too arrogant and he kills people easily. He's offended too many people. Yan Di, you're right. Now he's a phoenix without feathers. He's not even as good as a chicken and a tiger will be bullied by dogs. I can bully him however I want. After Zhou Xiaoxiang finished speaking, he suddenly realized that his words were a little inappropriate. Fortunately, Yan Di didn't notice it. His eyes were cold and solemn and he said pretentiously, although I'm not a high official, I'm not as good as a county official. In the airport area, I'm the boss. I can bully him however I want. Zhou Xiaoxiang put his hands behind his back, puffed out his chest and smiled proudly. I'm just about to bully him. Do you want to enjoy it with me? Okay. If you bully me to your heart's content, I'll treat you today. Hearing this, Yan Di's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up. She smiled charmingly and happily agreed. Chapter 839. Originally, Yendi was qualified to pass through the VIP channel. But she really wanted to see Jiang Tian being humiliated, so she quickly followed Jiang Tian and the others with Zhou Xian. Qing'er was nourished by Jiang Tian's true essence, and she ate Jiang Tian's painstakingly concocted pills to nourish her complexion and prevent miscarriage. Her complexion had recovered. But unexpectedly, when they passed through the customs inspection and quarantine station, Old Dragon Buttface was detained by the customs. "I'm sorry, this dog is a prohibited animal and can't enter the country. Please take it away immediately," the staff member said seriously. "I know that animals are prohibited, but companion dogs and cats are allowed." Sasaki Kaisha frowned and looked a little unhappy. "Also, we passed your country's customs application. The quarantine certificate and medical checks were done at Sidoni's customs without any problems. Yellow fever vaccination and so on, they were all done." Back in East Asia and in the Tianqing sect, she was a leader and had a respected status. Even the Prime Minister of Japan and Sidoni's Prime Minister Chen Yang had to give her some face. But this time she had just landed in Wuxia and hadn't even left the airport. How could she not be angry? "Yeah, I even got a needle. Actually, my dragon body is very healthy." Old Dragon was also very depressed and muttered while rolling his eyes. "This dog can talk. It must be a monster. Hallucination, it must be a hallucination." The surrounding staff members were shocked and their expressions changed. "How can you talk? Shut up." Jiang Tian threw a look at Old Dragon, and the latter stopped talking and lay there obediently. "This dog is not very healthy. It might have fallen sick on the way here. We can only detain it." The customs staff member shook his head and looked helpless. "If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Do you know who you are facing? This is the famous Jiang," Sasaki Kaisha shouted angrily. "Kongti." Zhou Xian's sarcastic voice came over. Of course, he knew that there was nothing wrong with this dog. But he wanted to trample on Jiang Tian, so he called the customs quarantine station in advance to stop them. "You know it's Master Kong and you still dare to do this. Do you know how much Master Kong has contributed to Wuxia?" Sasaki Kaisha was so angry that her hands were trembling and her pretty face was pale. She didn't understand. Now, in the international community, Sidoni was Wuxia's biggest ally. The sunflower lotus that Jiang Tian had given to Wuxia was practically a free gift. He had only charged a symbolic installation fee of a few $100 million. However, the United States, the European Union, and Japan were so scared that they didn't dare to show their teeth to China. When the Covenant of Darkness caused trouble in Wuxia, it was also Jiang Tian's Tianqing school that rushed to help. Even further, Jiang Tian nurtured Zhan Long, killed Qiao Bin, killed Wang Chongyan, took control of Tanjuan's lineage, defeated Koryo, and donated countless times to Wuxia through the Jiang family's charity fund. One after another, there were too many to count. Which one of them wasn't a great contribution to Wuxia? Which one of them wasn't a blessing to the future generations? But now Jiang Tian had returned to his hometown and was treated so rudely. It was simply unbearable. Why wouldn't I dare? Zhou Xian raised his chin proudly and said disdainfully, "Do you think he's still the #1 powerhouse in Wuxia? He has no cultivation base anymore. Now even the 6 major martial arts families in Beijing have broken ties with him. Without cultivation base, he's just an ordinary person. What can he do to me? If he has the guts, bite me. I'll kill this dog later and eat dog meat hot pot." The old dragon's eyes shone fiercely as he thought to himself, "Good. You want to eat my old dragon? Let's see who will eat who. I've been hungry for a long time." But the hot pot suggestion is not bad. It inspired me. I used to eat raw food all the time. It doesn't taste good. I wonder if Master has a big pot and hot pot ingredients in his gourd. His saliva instantly flowed down. Yendi also shook her head lightly and looked at Jiang Tian with disdain. "Zai, this is what it means to be bullied by dogs." But Kong Teichu was too arrogant back then. Yendi stepped forward in her high heels and said sweetly, "Jiang Tian, why don't I help you say something? My husband is still quite influential in the customs." "No need." Jiang Tian shook his head gently. Yendi said softly, "Jiang Tian, don't fight to the death. You've seen it too. The situation in China is different now. I'm afraid no one will give you face anymore. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. After all, we're old classmates. She said it very tactfully, but her meaning could still be understood. You've seen it too. Wuxia is no longer your world. You're nothing now. She despised Zhang Tian to the extreme in her heart. Zhang Tian, when you stood at the peak of Wuxia, I could only look up to you. I asked you out every day, humbled myself and wanted to be your lover. But you didn't even look at me. You even sent Su Ruoqing to threaten me not to harass you. Am I so cheap in your eyes? So unbearable? What about now? Aha, your family business has been forced overseas by the Lu and Song families. You've lost your cultivation. You're nothing. Zhang Tian ignored her and looked at Zhou Xian. He said indifferently, Are you targeting me? Yes, I'm targeting you. How about it? Zhou Xian roared. Do you think you're still the Kong Teichu of the past? Do you think I still need to be afraid of you? Do you want this dog? Beg me, hurry up and beg me. Kneel down. Bam. Suddenly, a surging figure flew over and kicked him to the ground. Zhou Xiaoxiang felt a sweet taste in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. He glared at the person and said, How dare you hit me? Why wouldn't I? Zhang Huchen took off his sunglasses and said coldly, Who do you think you are? How dare you roar at my Master Kong? Pa Zhang Huchen, I know you. How dare you hit me? Zhou Xiaoxiang was furious. He shouted, I'm a government official. There are surveillance cameras here. Also, I have the Qin family behind me. The martial arts Qin family. Qin family? Pa. Zhang Huchen kicked him like a soccer ball and kicked him under the chin. Zhou Xiaoxiang somersaulted in the air and knelt on the ground. His teeth fell out and blood spurted out of his mouth. Qin family? Who do you think you are? Zhang Huchen sneered. You're just Master Kang's dog. Ask Qin Zongheng to come here. Let's see if these two bastards have the guts to come here and bare their teeth. Zhang Huchen was furious. In the past few days, the rumor that Zhang Tian had been seriously injured and his cultivation had been reduced to a cripple had spread like wildfire. The martial arts families and even some secular families in Yanjin had started to make a move on the Zhang family's business. Ask your chairman to come here. Zhang Huchen pointed at Zhou Xiaoxiang's nose and shouted, I'd like to see how he's going to deal with you. So what if I ask the chairman to come here? If the chairman comes, Kong Teichu will make things worse. Zhou Xiaoxiang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and sneered. Now the news that Zhang Tian had become a cripple had spread throughout Yanjin's upper-class society. Who would give him face? Before Zhang Huchen took out his phone, Lu Zixing, the chairman of the airport group, had already heard the news and ran over. After all, this farce had caused quite a commotion and the security personnel had already reported it to the higher-ups. Chairman, look, they actually beat me up. I'm a government official. Zhou Xiaoxiang ran over as if he had seen a great support. He complained, Hurry up and call the airport police to arrest them. Flap. What greeted him was a crisp slap in the face. Why did you hit me? I'm the victim here. Zhou Xiaoxiang covered his face and stared at the chairman in shock and shouted. The chairman roared angrily, You want to confiscate Master Kang's things. Are you crazy? This is Master Kong we're talking about. What Master Kong? He's dying. Don't you know that? Zhou Xiaoxiang said angrily. Dying? Who do you think you are? What qualifications do you have to say that he's dying? Lu Zixing roared. Even if Zhang Tian was dying as the rumors said, his grandfather, the Zhang family, was now one of the top families in the secular world of Wuxia. Do you think you can afford to provoke them? Zhang Zhongguo was now a big shot in Yanjin, and the Yanjin International Airport was a state-owned enterprise under the Yanjin Municipal State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission. Here Zhang Zhongguo's words carried weight. He could directly fire you with one sentence. Who could stop him? I'm going to be implicated by you. I'm a government official. I can't be beaten like this. You're not allowed to leave. You have to give me an explanation. Zhou Xiaoxiang saw that Zhang Tian was supporting Zhao Xueqing to leave. He immediately shouted and chased after them, wanting to pull Zhao Xueqing away. I have to give you an explanation. Good. I'll give you an explanation. This time it was Huang Linger who made the move. Flap. She raised her eyebrows and her pretty face was frosty. She slapped Zhou Xiaoxiang's face and sent him flying 5 or 6 meters away. His face was swollen and his nose was bleeding. Huang Linger had always been gentle, compassionate and kind. To a certain extent she was even cowardly. She rarely resorted to violence or murder. However, at this moment she was really angry. Zhou Xian was pregnant, and this bastard still dared to offend her. What if the child was lost? Chapter 840. How dare you hit me? Zhou Xian got up, blood spurting from his mouth. He staggered toward Huang Linger and shouted angrily. Why wouldn't she hit you? She's pregnant. Can't you see? You're still pulling her. The chairman was so angry that he slapped Qin Xiaobei in the face without caring about his status. Zhou Xian must have taken the wrong medicine today. They hit me and they're leaving just like that? Zhou Xian fell to the ground again and shouted. Damn you. From now on you're fired. The chairman said angrily. Damn it, this kind of idiot must be fired. Otherwise there will be endless trouble. I'll be dragged into the ditch. Fire me? I'm just enforcing the law. Why should I be fired? Zhou Xian was stunned. His face was ashen as he said unwillingly. Don't you know whether you're enforcing the law impartially? I'll have someone investigate you. The chairman ignored him and hurried to catch up with Jiang Tian and his wife. He still had to apologize. Zhou Xian gradually calmed down. He had to report this matter to Qin Zongheng immediately. That Jiang guy did not make a move from the beginning to the end. It was obvious that he had no cultivation. He quickly dialed the number and explained in detail. Sure enough, Qin Zongheng said, Okay, you've been wronged. The Qin family will not mistreat you. I'll arrange for you to work at the head office later. Hey. Thank you, young Master Zongheng. Zhou Xian was overjoyed. So be it. I'm backed by the Qin family. It's not like I can't find a job. He hung up the phone and was about to return to his office to pack his things and leave. Suddenly, a series of footsteps were heard. The earth shook and the mountains shook. The sound was shocking. A group of brawny men in black suits and cool sunglasses surrounded a white-haired old man. They walked in and shouted, Who's Zhou Xian? Show yourself. I am. Which unit are you from? Why are you looking for me? What are you shouting about? I don't know what unit this is. Zhou Xian shouted proudly. The white-haired old man in the lead walked over with an eagle-like gaze and a wolf-like gait. He laughed sinisterly. You dare to provoke Master Kong with just you. I think you're crazy. Pop. His face turned cold. He took a step forward and kicked Zhou Xian's knee with great force. Crack. Zhou Xian's kneecap was immediately shattered. Blood flowed out and he fell to the ground, screaming like a pig being slaughtered. You dare to hit me? Chairman, why didn't you stop him? Zhou Xian howled in pain, cold sweat dripping down his forehead. The chairman, who arrived in time, was so shocked that his face turned pale. He raised his eyebrows and snorted. Me? Stop him. Stop your grandpa. Do you know who this is? This is Master Yuan Lei. What? Master Yuan. Zhou Xian's figure trembled as if he was struck by lightning, and he was terrified to the point he almost peed his pants on the spot. His countenance was pale to the extreme. Yuan Lei. This name reverberated like thunder in the ears. Perhaps his cultivation wasn't the strongest, but he was in charge of the safety of the big shots in the sea. He was the head of the Imperial Guards. Even when Lu Lishuan and Song Poju were still around, they didn't dare to provoke him. Master Yuan, you can't avenge private grudges. What right do you have to hit me? Zhou Xian shouted fiercely. Avenge private grudges? Don't follow the law? Haha, how do you know Master Kang's identity? I'm just carrying out my duty by hitting you. According to the law, I can already kill you. Yuan Lei snorted with a mocking expression. Back then he was contaminated by the blood breeds when he was protecting the important members of Wuxia. It was Jiang Tian who cured him. Since then he treated Jiang Tian as his benefactor, as if he was his second parent. He would call him every time it was a holiday. Otherwise he might become something that was neither human nor ghost. However, he didn't do it this time to repay a debt of gratitude. That was because Jiang Tian represented Sidoni, the ruler of a country. Wuxia valued him more than the king and prime minister. To put it bluntly, Jiang Tian's return was equivalent to a state visit. Under such circumstances, Zhou Xian dared to provoke Jiang Tian. If Jiang Tian took it seriously, it would become a serious case involving foreign interests. He could even be treated as a terrorist and be killed on the spot. What duty are you carrying out? Kong Teichu is just a member of the Jianghu. You're clearly targeting me. Zhou Xian shouted. Zhou Xian's level was still too low. He could only hear rumors about Jiang Tian's abilities. He didn't know that Jiang Tian already had Sidoni under his control. All the major countries in the world strictly guarded this information and limited it to a certain level. Even the words Medicine King Group and Kong Teichu were banned globally. Even if you climbed over the wall, you wouldn't be able to find any information on the search engine. Wuxia's network security management was second to none in the world. After Jiang Tian went overseas, Wuxia's network management department had almost completely wiped out all the information about Jiang Tian. Therefore, other than the top families, most people would not know that Jiang Tian had Sidoni under his control. News regarding Jiang Tian was practically all passed down by word of mouth. Everyone could only see bits and pieces, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. I'm targeting you, so what? Yuan Lei sneered and kicked his other leg, breaking the bone in his leg. Director Lu, this is bad. A group of people from the army is outside. I think they're from War Dragon. At this time, a female secretary ran in with an ashen face. She was so scared that she dropped one of her high heels. What? War Dragon? Lu Zicheng, the chairman of the airport group, was so scared that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He was about to go out and greet them. Whoosh! Tyrannosaurus led a group of fully armed war dragons and charged in majestically. There were more than 100 of them. Several soldiers flashed their relevant documents and cleared the place. All irrelevant people were to leave. Lu Zicheng, who do you think you are? How dare you target our War Dragon's chief consultant of martial arts, Master Kong? Violent Dragon rushed in with big strides and shouted angrily with his bell-sized eyes. He was now the captain of War Dragon and had performed well. He had made a lot of contributions and was a real colonel. Who the fuck dares to detain our Master Kang's little animal? How dare you pick a fight with our War Dragon's chief consultant of martial arts? Do you want to die? Fuck, whoever dares to provoke Master Kong, I'll be the first to kill them. Who is it? Come out. The group of war dragons were all loaded with bullets. They were so angry that their faces were red. They rushed over murderously and wanted to kill the culprit on the spot. After all, it was Jiang Tian who was their martial arts consultant and pushed them to a higher level of inner strength. After Qing Tian and the others sacrificed themselves, it was Jiang Tian who killed Xiao Bin to avenge the war dragons. Could be said that Jiang Tian was the person they admired the most. Now such a small character dared to insult Jiang Tian. How could they stand it? They were so angry that they were about to explode. Hey brother dragon, what wind blew you here? Put away the gun first. This thing is too scary. Lu Zicheng hurriedly greeted him with a face full of joy and said in a low voice, You can't blame me for this. It's all his fault. He pointed at Zhou Xian who had fallen to the ground. You're the person in charge here. How can it not be your fault? Violent Dragon's ugly face darkened. Without saying a word, he kicked him to the ground. Lu Zicheng lay on the ground and pretended to be dead. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Just as I guessed, I knew I was going to be shot. This was an unexpected disaster. Senior Yuan Lei, you're here too. Violent Dragon cupped his hands at Yuan Lei. This was the etiquette of the martial arts world. Although they belonged to different departments, they had worked together many times and knew each other. They often drank together and bragged about their relationship with Master Kong. Violent Dragon and the others were proud of themselves as Master Kang's disciples. Yuan Lei, on the other hand, considered himself as Master Kang's patient. He often said, My old injury was cured by Master Kong. You guys didn't get the same treatment. His tail was wagging to the sky. Master Kong is back. How can I not come to welcome him? I'm not an ungrateful person. Yuan Lei cupped his hands and returned the greeting with a smile. I heard about that too. Violent Dragon's eyes dimmed and he nodded. It was said that Master Kong vomited blood, was injured and had no cultivation. So what if he was injured? He was still the chief martial arts consultant of War Dragon. Moreover, he was injured when he fought against the United States. Which one of you has the ability to do that? So what if he has no cultivation? A tiger that has fallen from the sky is still a tiger. He's not someone that wild dogs like you can bully. Thinking of this, Violent Dragon's eyes turned cold and murderous. He walked toward Zhou Xian and snorted, Bastard, you actually dared to provoke Grandmaster Jiang. I say, do you want to die? Chapter 841. I was wrong. I won't do it again. Please spare my life. Zhou Xian was so scared that he almost lost his mind. His face was ashen as he trembled. He was already scared when the Red Wall internal guards came over. After all, they represented the core power of the secular world. They were not people he could easily provoke. Whether Qin Zongheng could deal with them was already a problem. Now Zhang Long was here. He was even more scared. Zhang Long was Cao Shixiang's direct disciple. He was known as the Small Long Formation and the Ace of Aces. His influence was too great. Fuck you. Now you know you were wrong. Where did you go just now? Violent Dragon's eyes were fierce and he was about to attack. Suddenly a shout came. Violent Dragon, calm down. Let me do it. At that moment, everyone saw an old man in a training suit striding over. Wei Feilong, the president of Wuxia's Martial Arts Alliance. Even though Wei Feilong had joined the Tianqing school, the title of president of the Martial Arts Alliance had always been his. It was not because of anything else, but because he was Kong Teichu's disciple. Behind him were dozens of martial arts experts, including many internal force masters and transcendent masters. When Jiang Tian established the Tianqing school in Sidoni, he had taken away many of Wuxia's martial arts elites. As the saying went, one should never forget the person who dug the well. Jiang Tian had always had deep feelings for Wuxia. He had never forgotten that he was a descendant of Wuxia. According to his instructions, Wei Feilong had never left the Wuxia Martial Arts Alliance behind. He had also arranged more martial arts elites to resist the invasion of foreign experts. He often returned to Wuxia from the Tianqing school with elixirs and cultivation methods to help and guide the martial arts experts guarding Wuxia. In the past 2 years he had cultivated more than 20 grandmasters. The strength of the Wuxia Martial Arts Alliance had not decreased but increased. It could be said that although Jiang Tian and the Martial Arts Alliance were not master and disciple in name, they were master and disciple in reality. To be exact, they were all Jiang Tian's grand disciples. Therefore, in the Wuxia Martial Arts Alliance, Jiang Tian's position was even higher than Yi Tianren's. Violent Dragon stopped and chuckled. So it's Senior Wei Feilong. Why are you here? Back then the Covenant of Darkness invaded Wuxia. Zhang Long had also moved out and fought alongside the Wuxia Martial Arts Alliance led by Wei Feilong. They killed the vampires and the evil experts on the international stage and forged a deep friendship. Master Kang's return is of great importance. It's the biggest event in Wuxia's martial arts world in 10 years. Wei Feilong laughed. As his disciple and the president of the Martial Arts Alliance, how can I not come to welcome him? So he was the president of the Martial Arts Alliance, Wei Feilong. Zhou Xian looked at the amiable old man in shock, not daring to believe it. When Jiang Tian returned, the Red Wall Guards, Zhang Long, the president of the Martial Arts Alliance, and the Zhang family of Beijing all came to welcome him. There might even be some more powerful forces that did not show up. After all, Jiang Tian had already left the airport. The ones who came to deal with him were only a small part of Jiang Tian's forces. How could this be called losing face? If this was not enough, what was the point of having face? Zhou Xian was now afraid and regretful. He was still too impatient and did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He had really been led astray by the comments on the internet. He thought that Jiang Tian had lost all his cultivation and no longer had any prestige in the country. After all, some small forums were abuzz with the news. However, even if Kong Teichu had lost all his cultivation and become a cripple, even if he lived overseas, his forces in Wuxia still existed. They were even some of the top forces in the country. They were definitely not people he could afford to offend. President Wei, this was arranged by Qin Zongheng of the Qin family. I was just following orders. Zhou Xian suddenly burst into tears and said, "Don't kill me, please don't kill me." The Red Wall internal guards and Battle Dragon were all organized and had to abide by the law. Even if they wanted to deal with him, they would probably go through legal procedures. He still had time to mediate and a chance to save his life. But martial artists were different. Chivalrous people broke the law with martial arts. For these martial artists who could kill without leaving a trace, the law was just a piece of paper. Master Kong always said that when an avalanche happens, No snowflake is innocent. Everyone has to be responsible for their own actions. Wei Feilong flew up and kicked Zhou Xian in the chest, saying coldly, "If you had provoked Master Kong and begged for mercy, you would have been fine. Who knows how many bastards would have jumped out to annoy Master Kong in the future. That's too cruel. I just wanted to detain a big black dog in their house." Zhou Xian was kicked more than 10 meters away. He immediately spat out blood and cried like a dying dog. "Damn, don't you know that you have to look at the owner before beating the dog? That's Master Kang's dog." Violent Dragon and the others sneered and shook their heads. Besides, it was not that simple. The key was that Zhao Xueqing was pregnant. "You've been causing trouble time and time again. First, you're not allowed to use the VIP passageway, and then you're holding people back. What if it affects the children? Who is this woman? She seemed to be disrespectful to Master Kong just now." At this time, Wei Feilong's eyes fell on Yan Di with a hint of coldness. "Nothing, I just wanted to help Zhang Tian." Yan Di suddenly trembled in fear and her heart skipped a beat. Wei Feilong and the others immediately pulled up the surveillance footage and looked at it. Violent Dragon shook his head and said with a sinister smile, "That's very offensive. It's an innuendo. She seems to be the daughter-in-law of the Li family in Yanjin. Her name is Yan Di. The Li family has some influence in the customs. Zhang Long's intelligence network was super powerful. They confirmed her identity in seconds and reported it to them. The daughter-in-law of the Li family is trash. How dare she provoke Master Kong? Even if the head of the Li family is here, would he dare?" A martial artist from the Martial Arts Alliance snorted angrily. "Kill her. Break her legs." Everyone was enraged and yelled. "Master Kong is as magnanimous as the ocean. He won't argue with you, but as his subordinates, we can't pretend that we didn't hear it." Wei Feilong's face flashed with anger as he looked at Yan Di. "The Martial Arts Alliance of Wuxia will wipe out this family." A Zhongshe realm expert shouted fiercely. Yan Di's face turned pale with fright. Her legs gave out and she knelt on the ground. "You have misunderstood. Zhang Tian and I are childhood sweethearts. We are very close. My words are harsh, but that's because my EQ is too low. I'm not targeting Zhang Tian." He was really regretting it now. Zhang Tian was still Zhang Tian. He didn't lose his power like the rumors said. Even if he had lost his cultivation, he was still a powerful being who could decide the fate of a person and reverse the fate of an entire family. The funny thing was that she didn't know how powerful he was, yet she kept mocking and provoking Zhang Tian. In the end, she brought disaster to her husband's family just because of a few words. Childhood sweethearts? Wei Feilong was stunned. Indeed. His parents and Master Kang's parents, Jiang Zhixing and his wife, were university classmates. A Zhan Long who was in charge of intelligence said in a low voice. "That's troublesome." Yuan Lei smacked his lips and said awkwardly. "As the saying goes, distant relatives can't be separated. After all, this is Master Kang's childhood friend. It's not appropriate for us to act rashly. It's hard to predict the intentions of the higher-ups. It's not convenient for us to act. Yes, what if Master Kong doesn't want us to kill them and we kill them? That's right. Who can withstand Master Kang's thunderous anger?" At the side, there were also people with solemn expressions who echoed in agreement. Wei Feilong pondered for a moment and looked at Yan Di. "Miss Yan, we don't mean to make things difficult for you, but as Master Kang's disciples, we can't ignore Master Kang's dignity. In the end, how we deal with you depends on Master Kang's attitude. Whoever started the trouble should end it. Go and find Master Kong. As long as Master Kong gives us a definite answer, we'll pretend that nothing happened today." Yan Di nodded quickly and promised that she would ask Zhang Tian for forgiveness. Only then did everyone leave. "Master, madam, stay at the Shin residence tonight," Shin Mange said coquettishly in a car with a red flag license plate of the Government Administration Council. The ones who really took Zhang Tian away were Special Envoy Shin and Shin Mange. Shin Mange's cultivation had also improved. She was half a step away from the immortal state and had learned a lot. She could handle everything on her own. Therefore she returned to Wuxia and took charge of the Shinong school. In the next few days, Zhang Tian would meet with Cao Shixiang and the others to discuss the cooperation between the Kualian and the military industry. Moreover, the One Eye Fund, Morgan, Rockefeller and DuPont families would attend the meeting. This time, in addition to the military industry, Wuxia officials would study opening up the financial, oil and chemical industries to break the original monopoly. Of course, Wuxia would not suffer losses, because these three families and the One-Eye Fund on Wall Street were all controlled by Jiang Tian. Opening up in cooperation would only make Wuxia's financial, oil and other industries stronger. Next to him, Zhang Huchen said with a pleading face, "Jiang Tian, you'd better go back to the Zhang family. Your grandparents miss you very much and have talked about you many times. Besides, your parents are there too." Chapter 842. Another spring festival came. Zhang Wanqing returned to Beijing and lived with her husband in the Zhang family's main residence. Ever since Jiang Tian returned, the Zhang family did not betray the Jiang family despite the pressure from the Lu and Song families and the invasion of the Covenant of Darkness. Zhang Wanqing's relationship with the Zhang family was getting better. After all, blood was thicker than water. Jiang Tian said calmly, "Let's stay at the Shen family's house for now." He did not have a good impression of Zhang Jinghua and Zhang Zhonghua. Zhang Huchen could only look resentful, but there was nothing he could say. It was their fault for being so blind. Everyone settled down in an elegant villa in the Shen family's house. After washing up, Jiang Tian sat down on the sofa and asked gently, "Qing'e, how are you feeling? Are you tired?" "I'm a little tired. This little girl is not quiet at all. He's kicking around." Zhao Xueqing drank the ginseng soup and said with a smile, "She doesn't have a good appetite. She only wants to eat spicy food." "Sour boy and spicy girl. You're pregnant with my baby. How can you not want to eat spicy food?" Jiang Tian's face was filled with happiness. He rubbed Qing'er's belly and felt the fire of that cute little life. "Wait, I'll make you a spicy one. Didn't I tell you that I'm best at Sichuan cuisine?" Beside him, Zhang Huchen said excitedly, "Brother Tian, sister-in-law, I know that there's a Sichuan restaurant called Spicy Nation in the courtyard of the Yanjing Hotel." "So awesome. That's spicy." This guy was very shameless. Jiang Tian was obviously older than him, but he called him brother and sister-in-law, and it was very smooth. "What the hell are you doing? I'm going to make tiger meat for my wife. Do you have it there?" Jiang Tian glared at him and shouted, "Can you stop disturbing our two-person world? Why don't you get out of here?" "What tiger meat?" Zhao Xueqing glared at Jiang Tian and said, "Even if I can take it, our daughter might not be able to. Let's go to the Sichuan restaurant at the Yanjin Hotel." "Okay. Then let's go." Jiang Tian listened to everything his wife said and agreed readily. At this moment, Zhang Wanqing called. "What's going on? I haven't seen Qing'er since she got pregnant. Where did you kidnap my wife? You're not going home either. If you want to see him, then let's have dinner together." Jiang Tian said with a smile. When Yendi got home, she immediately told her husband Li Jianwei about what happened at the airport this afternoon. "That's all there is to it? That bullshit Master Kong isn't going to make it. Number one. Since when was that? Why are you talking to him?" Li Jianwei said casually. His family was very influential in the General Administration of Customs and held the position of Deputy Director. He was the cousin of Mo Yuza, the Crown Prince of Yanjing. If it was a few years ago when Jiang Tian was still in his prime, he might have been afraid of Jiang Tian. But now he didn't care about Jiang Tian at all. Moreover, Mo Yuza had booked the entire Yanjin Hotel for the birthday banquet tonight. How could he delay the banquet and apologize to that bullshit Kong Teichu? But the Red Wall Internal Guards, Battle Dragon and Martial Arts Alliance have all made their move. He's still strong. The more Yendi thought about it, the paler his face became. "Why don't you ask our mother to talk to Aunt Zhang Wanqing? They're all university classmates. Wasn't that bullshit Medicine King group forced to withdraw from the market? That's the consequence of Kong Teichu offending the Lu and Song families." Li Jianwei pursed his lips and said disdainfully, "He can't even beat the Lu and Song families and he wants to fight with me? Besides, I have young Master Mo behind me." The most powerful person in Li Jianwei's family was only a deputy director. They could only be considered a second or third-tier family. Therefore he still didn't know the real story. He knew that Jiang Tian had defeated Zhang Qianlei, the Lu and Song family's official, but that was all he knew. In the end, the Medicine King group was forced to withdraw from the market and moved to Sidoni for strategic reasons. However, the Lu and Song families had slandered the Medicine King group in order to maintain the stability of their families. They said that the Jiang family of Medicine King group was forced to leave by the Lu and Song families. Even the financial media said so. Li Jianwei believed it. As for the news that the Lu and Song families were wiped out by Jiang Tian overseas, this news was strictly guarded by the government and never reached the ears of the public. Only the top people in the industry knew about it. Li Jianwei didn't even know about it. After all, it was Jiang Tian and the Long Formation's private law enforcement. The underworld was too strong. It was fine as long as the goal of eliminating the traitors was achieved. There was no need for it to be exposed. Therefore, the news of Lu Jinghua and Song Beishan dying of illness in the United States was spread. There were even obituaries on TV. Young Lord Imo. Yan Di suddenly felt emboldened. She raised her eyebrows and said with disdain, "That's true. We have young Lord Mo's support. What are we afraid of? Jiang Tian is just a nobody." Young Lord Mo Yuza was one of the 4 princes of Yanjin. His father was an important official in the navy. Mo Yuza was more powerful than Lu Lishuan, Zhang Jiangfeng and Song Poju. However, at this time, Yandi, you knelt down at the airport. Suddenly, a fair-skinned woman in a red silk cheongsam walked over in high heels. She raised her eyebrows and shouted. Yan Di was the daughter-in-law of the Li family and attracted a lot of attention. The news quickly spread. Mo Yunyun, Li Jianwei's mother, was furious. Wasn't this just Yan Di's honor and disgrace? Wasn't this throwing away the Li family's face? Yes. Yan Di blushed and was about to explain. Smack. Mo Yunyun gave Yan Di a slap which caused Yan Di to stagger. A few clear handprints appeared on her beautiful face. Mom. Yan Di felt wronged. Li Jianwei shouted. Mom? How dare you call me mom? Mo Yunyun angrily shouted. What? You shouldn't have knelt down. Who in Yanjin dares to make the Mo family kneel? Yan Di was speechless. That's Zhang Wanqing's son. Li Jianwei frowned and explained. He's also from a powerful family. Mom, don't make things difficult for Yan Di. So what if he's Zhang Wanqing's son? Is Zhang Wanqing here? Is she purposely making things difficult for me? Mo Yunyun's well-maintained face was covered with frost. A glint of coldness flashed in her clear eyes. She was jealous of Zhang Wanqing. She even hated her a little. The Mo family was one of the oldest families in Yanjin. Back then, Mo Yunyun and Zhang Wanqing were both born in wealthy families. They were the heiresses of Yanjin, just like Han Qingli, Xiaolin and Li Yanmei. They had similar backgrounds and were of the same age. Mo Yunyun couldn't help but compare with Zhang Wanqing in secret. Especially when they were in university. Zhang Wanqing was known as the prettiest girl in Yanjin. Many rich young men pursued her and Mo Yunyun liked one of them. Therefore, even now, when Zhang Wanqing was mentioned, Mo Yunyun felt very uncomfortable in her heart. However, Zhang Wanqing married a poor guy in Jinlin City and was removed from the Zhang family. Mo Yunyun felt good for a while. She didn't expect that Zhang Wanqing's son would dare to bully her daughter-in-law and force her to kneel. Are you trying to slap me in the face? Zhang Wanqing wasn't here. Yan Di covered his face and shivered like a quail in the cold wind as he said softly. Seeing her like this, Mo Yunyun was even more disappointed. Although Yan Jianfan and his wife were considered high-level intellectuals, they were nothing compared to the real rich families. This daughter-in-law was too lousy. She asked Li Jianwei to pursue Shen Mange, but he didn't pursue her. In the end, he married such a good-for-nothing girl. Yan Di, ask your parents to accompany me tonight. I want to meet Zhang Wanqing, my old classmate. Mo Yunyun sneered and gritted her teeth. Does he think that she's so great now that the Zhang family has risen? He really doesn't know his place. Humph, compared to me, Mo Yunyun, she's still far behind. In her opinion, even if the Zhang family rose, Zhang Wanqing still couldn't compare to her. Zhang Zhonghua, the pillar of the Zhang family, was only from Yanjin. Her brother, on the other hand, was working in the sea. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She sneered proudly. This time I'm going to punish him properly. I'm going to make that bastard Jiang Tian kneel down and admit his mistake. Mom, that Jiang Tian is a martial arts expert. He defeated the Lu Song family's consecrator before. Yan Di explained. Although he doesn't have any cultivation now, he still has people supporting him. Today he has. Yan Di had to explain himself. Mo Yunyun didn't know about these things and she wasn't interested in them at all. A political and business family had their pride. How could the commoners of Jianghu compare to those who lived high up in the imperial court? No matter how high one's cultivation was, would they be able to withstand the firepower of an army? Bah! What martial arts expert? They're all crooked. How can they be compared to the national army? Mo Yunyun heard a few words and interrupted disdainfully. Martial arts families use martial arts to violate the law. The country rejects and oppresses them. If they piss me off, I'll raze them to the ground with cannons. Jiang Tian is nothing. If Jiang Tian was really capable, why would the Lu and Song families force the Jiang family and the Medicine King group to go overseas? He's like a stray dog. It's obvious that there's no place for him. The people in the sea don't like him. Otherwise, why would he be willing to give up his position and go to that godforsaken place? Chapter 843. On Chang'an Street, in the largest private room of the Yanjing Hotel, Spicy Sichuan restaurant. Oh, Xueqing, you're finally pregnant with my granddaughter. Zhang Wanqing was overjoyed. She kept touching her daughter-in-law's slightly bulging belly. At this banquet, Zhang Jinghua, Zhang Zhonghua, and Zhang Qingji knew that they were disliked by Jiang Tian, so they didn't attend. They didn't want to upset Jiang Tian. Of course, etiquette couldn't be lacking. They would visit Zhao Xueqing alone at other times. Only Zhang Yilin, Zhang Jiangfeng, Zhang Huchen and Henga attended. These two took the initiative to serve tea and water. These two were doing well in Yanjing. They were famous young masters, but compared to Jiang Tian they were nothing. It should be known that those who could be friends with Jiang Tian were all existences such as the President of the United States or the President of the European Union. These young masters of wealthy families were still far from him. Besides, Xin Mange, Sasaki Haisha and Huang Linger didn't attend. After all, this was a family banquet. Jiang Zhixing also rubbed his hands excitedly and gave important instructions. You must increase your nutrition and rest well. You have to take good care of Jiang Tian. If anything happens to Xueqing, I'll tell you. He glared and said seriously, your mother and I don't want to live anymore. The assassination of the Covenant of Darkness made Jiang Zhixing realize that if he kept showing up in public, it would seriously affect Jiang Tian's career. Therefore he made a sacrifice and retired at the last moment. He directly handed in his resignation to the central government. Now he was the chairman of the Medicine King Charity Foundation. Most of the time he lived in Sidoni and occasionally returned to Wuxia. In his heart, as long as he could contribute to Wuxia, it didn't matter what work he did. Jiang Zhixing had the backbone of a traditional intellectual. He was patriotic and had no political ambitions. He was also not a fan of politics. After chatting for a while, Zhang Wanqing smiled and said, Son Qinga, I have a few friends coming over. You don't mind, right? They're all university classmates and friends from back then. No way. Jiang Tian quickly said, you can make an appointment another day. Don't disturb my wife. You've really forgotten your mother after marrying a wife. Zhang Wanqing did not intend to insist. What are you talking about? Now that the children are involved, we can always make an appointment with Yan Jianfan. Jiang Zhixing also cherished his future granddaughter very much. Jiang Tian, do you have to be so nervous? Although Zhao Xueqing felt sweet in her heart, she was still very sensible. It's okay, Mom. It's not easy for you to come back to China. It's rare for you to get together. Let them come. Zhang Wanqing then called Yan Jianfan and his wife. Old Jiang Wanqing, how many years has it been since we last met? Wanqing, you're getting more and more beautiful. Look at me, I'm getting old. A moment later, Yan Jianfan brought his wife, daughter and Mo Yunyun over. Yan Jianfan, his wife Su Lulu, Mo Yunyun, and Jiang Zhixing and his wife were all university classmates. Zhang Danfeng and Zhang Huchen were still quite respectful towards Mo Yunyun. After all, her brother was a high-ranking official in the Navy. Although he was only her cousin, they were still related by blood. There were rules within the system. The two of them were quite enthusiastic. Jiang Tian could not be bothered to chat with this group of old uncles and aunties. He just kept putting food in Qinger's bowl and serving her tea. Qinger ate very happily. Her forehead was covered in sweat. She pouted her bright red lips and sucked here and there. She was very happy. When they first met, the atmosphere was quite good. After all, they were all in their 20s and came from wealthy families. They were well educated. Only a shrew would do such a thing. Mo Yunyun would never do such a thing. They toasted each other and chatted for a while. Mo Yunyun could not hold back her anger when she saw Jiang Tian like this. She became more and more annoyed. This Jiang Tian couple was going too far, wasn't they? This adulterous couple forced my daughter-in-law to kneel and slapped the Mo family in the face. How can they sit still and not say a word? They only care about their wife. At that moment, Mo Yunyun said sarcastically, Wanqing, your son must be very powerful, right? Where is he working? Is it the government or some listed company? She could tell that something was off. Zhang Wanqing smiled and said, He's at Medicine King Group. How can he be in the system fighting and robbing people every day? That was true. Jiang Tian fought the Covenant of Darkness and suppressed the Cosmic Shield. Wasn't that just fighting? Jiang Tian was not wrong to say that he was robbing people. He fought the Covenant of Darkness to short the euro and plundered all of Europe's wealthy families. He even took down 3 major American conglomerates. Wasn't that just robbery? Medicine King Group. Su Lulu smiled but did not say anything. She snorted disdainfully. Don't put up a strong front. Wasn't Medicine King Group forced out of the country by the Liu and Song families? There's no Medicine King Group left. Mo Yunyun smiled and said, Jiang Tian's temper is still so bad. He's bullying the Mo family now. What's going on? Zhang Wanqing frowned and looked at Jiang Tian. Don't accuse me, Yan Di. When did I bully you? Jiang Tian did not know. He was only concerned about taking care of Qing'er and had already left the airport. Yan Di was a little afraid of Jiang Tian at first, but when he came to take a look he found that it was not the case at all. Zhang Huchen and Zhang Danfeng were even a little subservient to her mother-in-law and husband. Jiang Tian had lost his cultivation. Wasn't he relying on the Zhang family to support him? What right did he have to challenge her? Therefore she immediately lost her temper and said coldly, Wei Feilong and the others forced me to kneel and wanted to kill me. They're all your people. If you didn't give the order, would they dare to do that? They did that to you. Jiang Tian did not expect Wei Feilong and the others to be so supportive. He took a sip of wine and said with a smile, It's my fault, my fault. The people under the Guan family are not good enough. I'll punish myself by drinking a cup first. I'll give them a good lesson later. Yan Jianfan hurriedly said, This matter ends here. Let's turn the page. We're friends for generations. It's just a small misunderstanding. However, Jiang Tian's concession was interpreted by Mo Yunyun as a sign that he was weak and could be bullied. She rolled her eyes at Yan Jianfan and her face turned cold. She threw her chopsticks and said sarcastically, Wanqing, I don't want to criticize you, but Jiang Tian, this child, you have to take good care of him. He's already so old and is about to have a child, but he's still fighting and killing all day long. What kind of place is this? This is the foot of the emperor. It's his turn to run amok. Jiang Tian is too ignorant. He offended the Liu family and the Song family. Now your husband has lost his job and has nothing to do at home every day. The Medicine King Group is finished. Zhang Wanqing's face darkened. However, they were old classmates she had not seen for many years. He did not want to offend them. The smile on Jiang Zhixing's face also stiffened. Yan Jianfan hurriedly said, Don't talk nonsense, Mrs. Zhang. Jiang Tian is not an ordinary person. He's an extraordinary person. Extraordinary person? He's just learned some third-rate martial arts. There are plenty of people like him in Yanjin. Mo Yunyun's face was slightly mocking. If you ask me, he should be an official and have a decent career. Our old Li is a ministerial official now, and Jianwei even opened a foreign trade company. His annual income is more than 1 billion yuan, and he's considered a big shot in Beijing. I'm now a VIP at Bordeaux Winery. A bottle of wine costs 30 to 40,000 yuan a day. A set of Anna Lean's cosmetics costs 100,000 yuan. I can buy anything. And Joan's jewelry. She reached out her left hand and showed the huge sapphire ring. Look at this big sapphire ring. More than 100,000 euros. That's more than 1 million yuan. My son gave it to me. Her disdain was as clear as day. What can your son buy for you? You don't even have a branded bag or jewelry. Mo Yunyun was born in a family of officials and had been influenced since she was a child. Her EQ was definitely not low. Even if she had a strange personality, she rarely used such straightforward and clumsy sarcasm. The key was that she thought that Zhang Wanqing's background, husband, children, assets, and status were all inferior to hers. She could completely crush Zhang Wanqing. She had been suppressed by Zhang Wanqing since she was a child. She had been suppressing the anger in her heart for decades. Now that her daughter-in-law was being bullied by Jiang Tian, how could she not get back at him? Jiang Zhixing and his wife could only smile bitterly and remain silent. Jiang Tian smiled mockingly and said, "Auntie Mo, I don't mind if you say anything else. But if you say that I'm not filial to my mother, then I'm not happy." Jones Jewelry, Anneline's Cosmetics, Bordeaux Wine. My mother can have as much as she wants. But my mother has already seen through these things. She doesn't want them even if I give them to her. Auntie Mo, you're considered a socialite in Yanjin, but now you've fallen to such a state that you need to use these luxuries to make yourself look good. I'm very disappointed. Hearing this, Su Lulu's face froze. She smiled and said, "What are you talking about?" Mo Yunyun was even angrier. She mocked, "Jiang Tian, are you crazy? You want as much as you want. Jones Jewelry, Anneline's, Bordeaux Wine, these international brands are all yours?" "Yes, they're mine." Jiang Tian sipped his tea and nodded casually. "Keep bragging." Mo Yunyun almost laughed out loud. His eyebrows were raised so high that they almost reached the sky. He snorted disdainfully. "I still don't know what kind of person you are. You're just a good-for-nothing." Jones Jewelry and Anneline belong to the Rothschild family. Bordeaux belongs to the Tantorn family. When did they become yours? She said arrogantly. "To tell you the truth, I have the right to speak directly with the Tantorn Manor and the Rothschild family. Just last week I went to Europe for a vacation and was invited by them." Jiang Tian almost spat out his wine. "Auntie Mo, you're so smart. You can talk to ghosts?" These two families had been wiped out by him. How could they receive her? They could only be ghosts. "What are you talking about?" Mo Yunyun's face was cold. She slammed the table and said angrily, "Jiang Tian, no matter what, I'm your elder. If you dare to talk to me like that again, I'll cut your head off." Chapter 844. Let me tell you, I have connections overseas. The Liu family and the Song family are very close to me. He was really confident. Her cousin was a high-ranking official in the Navy, and her husband was also very influential in the customs. What did Zhang Wanqing have? She only had one brother, Zhang Zhonggua, who was in Yanjin and didn't have the chance to enter the sea. As for her relationship with the Liu family and the Song family, she was just bragging. The Mo family and the Liu family and the Song family belonged to two completely different factions. She was just trying to make herself look good. Zhang Wanqing was also a bit annoyed. She frowned and said, "You're going to kill a kid just because he argued with you? Do you still think of me as your old classmate?" "Yeah, it's just a misunderstanding. Please don't be angry." Seeing that they were about to quarrel, Yan Jianfan also comforted Mo Yunyun. "I have a feeling that Jiang Tian is not that simple. Please don't fall out with him. Otherwise you will regret it." If Jiang Tian wasn't doing well, he would at least try to curry favor with the Mo family. However, Jiang Tian had been taking care of Zhao Xueqing from the start to the end and didn't pay any attention to them. How confident was he? "Go away. Why are you helping an outsider? Is there something wrong with your brain?" Mo Yunyun had always looked down on Yan Jianfan's family. Yan Jianfan's face turned red, but he didn't dare to say anything. Their family was just a family of intellectuals. They couldn't be compared to the Mo family at all. Usually they didn't have much say. The atmosphere was awkward. Zhang Wanqing placed her hand on her forehead. She didn't expect the gathering to turn out like this. If she had known, she wouldn't have invited them. Su Lulu also said, "Wanqing, my mother-in-law said that for Jiang Tian's sake. Today we ran into our own people. Otherwise, with Jiang Tian acting so recklessly, something would definitely have happened. If my mother-in-law didn't care about our friendship, he wouldn't be alive." When Yan Di saw that he could trample Jiang Tian under his feet, he felt very happy. He snorted disdainfully in his heart. "Fortunately, I broke up with you back then. Otherwise, who knows what you've done to me. You may have some ability, but you are too brainless and too arrogant." Seeing that Zhang Wanqing was speechless, Mo Yunyun thought that he had gained the upper hand. He sneered arrogantly and said, "Zhang Wanqing, just based on the fact that the two of you are in such a state, just based on the fact that your incompetent son is dragging you down, what qualifications do you have to be my classmate? There's no need to eat this meal." At this moment someone knocked on the door. Xianxia pushed the door open and entered. She sat down beside Zhang Wanqing and said coquettishly, "Oh auntie, this trip to Europe is so tiring. You have to reward me." Behind her were a few blonde assistants. They had an extraordinary aura and were obviously business elites. "Hello, Chairman." They respectfully bowed deeply to Zhang Wanqing and then silently stood behind Xianxia. "What do you want? Tell me." Zhang Wanqing is in a better mood and said with a smile, "Drink some water." Zhang Danfeng's eyes lit up. She quickly handed over a cup of water and asked with concern, "Is Europe going well?" Although the two could be called cousins from Jiang Tian's relationship, they were actually not related by blood. In the past few years the Zhang and Jiang families have cooperated a lot. The two have also had a lot of contact. He slowly developed feelings for Xianxia. "It's going well." Xianxia took a sip of tea and reported to Jiang Tian and Zhang Wanqing. "It's mainly to inspect the operations of several brands such as Aniline Jones Jewelry and Bordeaux Winery. I also brought an accounting company to review the financial affairs. In the past few months, these companies have been running well. Especially Jones Jewelry, which cooperated with Hilton Hotel to set up a duty-free shopping store in the hotel. In 2011 the profit should be 5 billion euros. What? As soon as this sentence came out, Mo Yunyun, Su Lulu, Yen Jianfan and Yen Di were all stunned. They looked at each other in disbelief. Su Lulu has lived in Jinling for a long time. Although she moved to Yanjing, she also had an impression of Xianxia. She smiled and asked, "Isn't this Xianxia? Why are you reporting this to Jiang Tian? These companies are all under Jiang Tian. If I don't report to them, who should I report to?" Xianxia looked confused. "These companies are all Jiang Tian's. Everyone only felt dizzy. They couldn't believe it and looked at each other. "That's right. If you want to buy these brands in the future, call me. I'll give you a discount." Xianxia took out her business card and distributed it around. She smiled and said, "But now Jiang Tian has given all of them to my aunt. The business is too small. Jiang Tian doesn't have time to take care of it. If you call my aunt, it'll probably be free of charge." Everyone was stunned. They were so shocked that their faces turned pale. The corners of their mouths twitched crazily. Just Bordeaux Winery alone was the world's top high-end red wine brand. It was a weapon for the rich and powerful to show off. Its value was probably about the same as Wuxia's Maotai. It was at least 100 billion yuan. This was called a small business. Then what kind of business did Jiang Tian do? According to Jiang Tian's instructions, we registered a few shadow companies in the Cayman Islands that were actually controlled by you. These companies have now all been placed under these shadow companies. Xianxia waved her hand. A staff member behind her took out a stack of documents and handed it to Zhang Wanqing. Mo Yunyun and the others actually had some international business experience. They could tell that these documents were all real when they looked at them. Looking at Xianxia's entourage who didn't dare to sit on the table, they were clearly the general manager of Anna, the financial director of Bordeaux Winery, the chief designer of Jones Jewelry and so on. In an instant, Mo Yunyun's face was as red as a monkey's butt. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Just now she was showing off to Zhang Wanqing that she could afford these brands and that her son had a company with assets of 10 billion yuan. But now she realized that these brands were Zhang Wanqing's. Didn't that mean she could use as much as she wanted? The funny thing was that she kept laughing at Jiang Tian and the others, thinking that they were bragging. In the end, it turned out that Jiang Tian wasn't bragging at all. It was her who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. "By the way, auntie, the material of this diamond necklace was taken from the king's crown and scepter. It was given to the chief designer of Jones Jewelry to design and create. Do you think it suits you?" At this time Xianxia's voice fell. "Chairman, please take a look." The chief designer of Jones Jewelry behind her immediately took out a red velvet box and carefully handed it to Zhang Wanqing. The whole necklace was composed of the world's most advanced diamonds. Layer upon layer, it could cover half of a person's chest. Looked sparkling and dazzling. Among them, the heaviest one was pear-shaped and weighed 532 carats. This giant diamond was called the Star of Africa. It had 74 facets and was previously inlaid on the king's scepter. It was also the world's largest diamond so far. It turned out that when Zhang Tian raided Buckingham Palace, he saw the king's crown and scepter. Originally these things were useless to him, but he thought that maybe his mother, Qing'e, would like them, so he took them away. Later he felt that the king's crown and scepter were not suitable for him, so he gave them to Jiang Bangxia and asked her to find Joan's jewelry to remove all the diamonds and gemstones and redesign them into necklaces, earrings and rings. This is the Star of Africa. It's too shiny. Zhang Huchen's eyes were glowing like a wolf's. The Star of Africa. Just this one alone is worth at least 300 million euros, which is 3 billion yuan. Su Lulu only felt dizzy. Her brain was not enough to process it. In 2011 at the Basel Jewelry Exhibition, a 150-carat full diamond ring was sold for 100 million euros. And this one was more than 3 times the weight of his. Moreover, it was the world's largest diamond. It was probably worth 300 to 500 million euros. If the other hundreds of bright diamonds were added, the value was difficult to measure. It was probably close to 2 billion euros. I saw this necklace at Joan's jewelry exhibition before. An American tycoon offered 2 billion euros to buy it, but he couldn't get it. At that time it was only on display, not for sale. Mo Yunyun was in a daze. She felt a sharp pain in her chest and found it difficult to breathe. She never thought that Zhang Wanqing's financial resources were so strong. A necklace was worth more than 20 billion yuan. She had worked so hard to build a foreign trade company, and Zhang Wanqing could buy 1 necklace and 2 more. Zhang Wanqing furrowed her brows and said calmly, "That's right. This diamond is too heavy and too big. If I wear it on my neck, I will get cervical spondylosis." Behind Jiang Bangxia, the chief designer of Joan's jewelry, was so scared that cold sweat broke out on his forehead and his legs turned to jelly. Unfortunately, his Mandarin was average. He was tongue-tied for a long time and could not say a word. "Auntie, I am willing to get cervical spondylosis." Jiang Bangxia laughed out loud. Then she frowned and said helplessly, "These diamonds were originally taken from the scepter of the King of England. When they were cut, they were not made into necklaces. The designer is also in a difficult position. If they are cut again, the value of the diamonds will be damaged. They can only use the original shape. Qing'e, why don't you wear it? Consider it my blessing for your pregnancy." Zhang Wanqing pushed the necklace in front of Zhao Xueqing and said softly. Seeing this, Yandi's eyes widened. He was shocked, envious and jealous. There was also a bit of bitter regret in his heart. Zhao Xueqing's mother-in-law was too generous. She gave away 20 billion worth of jewelry. Yet her own mother-in-law was bossing her around and slapping her at every turn. When had she ever loved and cherished her so much? If she had been discerning and had been with Zhang Tian, wouldn't this diamond necklace have been hers? "Mom, I don't want it." Zhao Xueqing shook her head gently as if she was looking at a straw rope. She smiled faintly and said, "This shiny thing is no different from glass. It can only attract those superficial women." Wow. Mo Yunyun's face, which was already red from embarrassment, turned red again. It was as if blood was about to drip out. She felt that her face had been slapped, swollen. Slap, 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 slap. She hurriedly covered the sapphire ring on her finger that she was once proud of. Chapter 845. Mo Yunyun couldn't take it anymore. He felt like a clown. She was so proud of her jewelry that was worth hundreds of thousands of yuan. He wanted to show it off. In the end, Jiang Yuning didn't even look at it and gave 20 billion yuan worth of jewelry to a junior sister-in-law. "I'm that kind of shallow and vulgar woman." Jiang Bangxia slapped her thigh and giggled. "If you don't want it, can you give it to me? I'll give it to you. You've worked hard in Europe some time ago. You deserve a reward." Zhang Wanqing smiled faintly. Zhang Wanqing was referring to the fact that Jiang Bangxia had been detained during the Covenant of Darkness. Although she did not suffer much, it was inevitable that she would be frightened. This child could withstand the test. "Thank you, Auntie. Thank you, sister-in-law. Thank you, Brother Tian." Jiang Bangxia was overjoyed. She smiled like a flower. "Especially Auntie. She's so domineering. She's the mother of the world. 20 billion Wuxia dollars. The hard work of the past few years was worth it. If she were on Wall Street, she might not be able to earn so much in her lifetime." "Wanqing Zhixing, enjoy your meal. I still have a banquet to attend. I'll take my leave first." Seeing this, Mo Yunyun couldn't stay any longer. Her face turned red and green. She forced a smile and jumped out like a stray dog. Her face was swollen. She had no intention of staying there. She showed off that her family was rich, had good gestures, had branded cosmetics, and drank red wine. In the end, those big brands all belonged to others. This realm was too far apart. One was in the sky and the other was on the ground. There was no way to compare. It was impossible to catch up. Wanqing, let's meet again when we have time. Before Su Lulu left, she smiled flatteringly at Zhang Wanqing. She probably felt that if she could curry favor with the Jiang family, there would be a lot of benefits. The contrast between her arrogance and deference was very clear. "Sai, what's wrong with them?" After they left, Jiang Zhixing felt that the world was overflowing with people's hearts. He shook his head and sighed. She used to be a good classmate. At this age, she's in her 50s and 60s. She's almost a grandmother. She still wants to compete for power, money, and status. Don't laugh at me. She's been like this since she was young. She's been praised and pampered by a circle of people for so many years. She hasn't gone through any trials and tribulations. Do you think she can make any progress? Zhang Wanqing also shook her head in disappointment. Even though she's almost 50 years old, she's still a young girl in terms of wisdom. Mo Yunyun walked out in a daze. She wanted to cry but had no tears. When she went down the stairs, she slipped and almost fell. "Little hussy, how dare you challenge me, Mo Yunyun?" Pa. She raised her hand and slapped the waitress opposite her, causing her to almost fall to the ground. "When did I challenge you?" The waiter was dumbfounded, but he didn't dare to say anything. Mo Yunyun even brought along bodyguards. One look and one could tell that he was either rich or respectable. How could a small fry like her afford to offend him? Mo Yunyun was treating this waitress as Zhang Wanqing. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. "I'm so angry. I'm so angry. Who do you think you are, Zhang Wanqing? All you have is some stinky money. How dare you show off in front of me? When I left, she didn't even send me off. She's so arrogant. No way. I'll definitely get my revenge." She clenched her silver teeth and trembled with anger. Zhang Wanqing was right. Even though this woman was 50 years old, she was still childish. She still wanted to compete with others. When they arrived at the hall, suddenly Yan Di frowned and stared at a tall girl wearing sunglasses. "Hey, isn't this the superstar Li Huiyan? Why is she here?" "What superstar? She's just an actress. Can't you be more knowledgeable?" Mo Yunyun said angrily. "Nope. I heard that Mo Yuza invited her to his birthday party today, but she said she wasn't feeling well and politely declined." Yan Di said, "Why is she here?" Mo Yunyun looked back and her eyes lit up. She went to Jiang Tian's room. What do you think will happen if Mo Yuza finds out about this?" Mo Yuza called Mo Yunyun his aunt. However, the Mo family had replaced the Lu and Song families. They were one of the top political families in Yanjin. There were too many family members in the family. Mo Yunyun was, in fact, a distant relative. In short, she couldn't use the power of the Mo family. However, Mo Yuza, who was the direct descendant of the Mo family, was different. He could. Where do you think Zhang Wanqing got so much money? I think Jiang Zhixing took bribes. Su Lulu said, fanning the flames. Yan Di also said, "That's right. She forced me to kneel. I can't just let this go. Is an apology enough? I want Jiang Tian to kneel before me." Mo Yunyun was beaming with joy. She snapped her fingers and said proudly, "Let Mo Yuza pressure her and scare her. Say that you want to investigate them. I'll see if she's not scared enough to kneel and beg for mercy. Jiang Zhixing will be safe after he retires? He'll be able to do whatever he wants." Bah. Yan Jianfan panicked and said angrily, "Oh my god, don't make trouble. Jiang Tian is too scary. We can't afford to offend him. He was known as the Master Kong of Jinlin City because of his Dharma spells." "I can't afford to offend him?" Mo Yunyun smirked and said, "Who do you think he is? The President of the United States or the Emperor of Russia? There's no one in Wuxia that I can't afford to offend. I'm going to teach them a lesson. Old Yen, we have to vent our anger. This is about the reputation of our in-laws." Su Lulu also smirked and said, "Jiang Tian might have some influence in Jinlin City, but this is Yanjin. Besides, he's no longer the Master Kong of old. Everyone says that he's done for. I don't care. I want Jiang Tian to kneel and apologize to me. Yan Di also said angrily. Let me tell you, if you insist on doing things your own way, if you insist on acting recklessly, you will suffer losses and regret it. Yan Jianfan said angrily. He didn't have the right to speak in front of his in-laws. It was useless even if he said it 100 times. Tell them that Li Huiyan went to Jiang Tian's room. Mo Yunyun gave Yan Di a look. Yan Di called her husband Li Jianwei, who was at Mo Yu's birthday party. Yanjin Grand Hotel and Spicy Hot Pot Restaurant weren't far from each other. They were in the same compound. At the moment, the entire hotel was cleared out and no guests were allowed to enter. Everyone in the venue was either rich or powerful. An international pianist was playing a piece in front of a Yamaha piano in the distance. Not only were the rich and powerful gathered there, but there were also many popular actresses such as Yang Mi and Reba, which added a touch of glamour to the party. More than half of the top 20 tycoons in Wuxia were there, which showed how powerful young Master Mo Yuchen was in Yanjin. Happy birthday, young Master Mo. Many rich people raised their glasses and looked at the powerful young Master Mo with envy and admiration. As for the celebrities who were regarded as goddesses, they didn't even have the right to get close to him. Mo Yu's face was cold and his eyes were indifferent. He nodded slightly and took a sip. The top tycoons in Wuxia finished the wine in their glasses and didn't dare to leave a drop in it. Young Master Mo, I don't have much to give you. I bought a courtyard house in Yanjin as a gift. One of the richest men in China's real estate industry took out a key and said in a humble voice, "Thank you for your generosity." "Ah, Brother Wang, it's just a courtyard house. Don't you think it's embarrassing to give it to young Master Mo?" Another tycoon said with a fake smile. They were all around Mo Yuza, trying to please him like the eunuchs of the ancient emperors. Haha, that courtyard house was the old residence of an Iron Hat king in the Qing dynasty. The tycoon with the surname Wang laughed and said proudly, "The Iron Hat king's residence. Ahem, Brother Wang, forget what I said." The tycoon smiled awkwardly and quickly hid behind the crowd. At this moment, many tycoons sucked in a breath of cold air as if they had a toothache. The residence of the Iron Hat King in the Qing dynasty was extremely valuable. The land alone could be sold for billions if it was dismantled and sold. Moreover, it had cultural value and couldn't be replicated. Everyone sighed. No wonder Boss Wang's business was getting bigger and bigger. He had spent a lot of money to please young Master Mo. At this moment, Li Jianwei walked over and said in a low voice, "Cousin Li Huiyan isn't sick. She's having a hot pot with a few friends at the Spicy Hot Pot Restaurant. My family saw her." Mo Yu's face suddenly changed and his eyes turned cold. Li Huiyan had become popular in Wuxia and the rest of the world. She had received a lot of resources from Hollywood and quickly became the most popular celebrity in Wuxia. Li Huiyan instantly became the target of many rich young masters. Even Mo Yuza fell in love with her at first sight. This time, Mo Yuza invited Li Huiyan to his birthday party, but she declined with the excuse that she wasn't feeling well. Now it seemed that Li Huiyan didn't give him face. Mo Yuza knew that Li Huiyan had a lot of resources. He even heard that Zhang Huchen from the Zhang family was supporting her from behind the scenes. However, in Mo Yuza's eyes, Zhang Huchen was nothing. Zhang Zhonghua hadn't even entered the sea yet. So Li Huiyan was pretending to be sick. How dare she not give face to me, Mo Yuza? She's got guts. Mo Yuza laughed self-deprecatingly. Deep in his eyes, there was resentment and anger. Chapter 846. Of course, a powerful and influential person like him couldn't marry a female celebrity like Li Huiyan. Big families were all connected by marriage based on benefits. Marrying a female celebrity was simply laughable. In the crowd, the female celebrity named Yang Mi sneered with a thick nasal voice. "Young Master Mo, that Li Huiyan is very arrogant now." At the beginning of the year, she even trampled on a group of celebrity directors from Hong Kong. Now she doesn't even care about the celebrities from the mainland. She fanned the flames and said, "Last time I was in the same group as her. She even ordered the director and a senior like me around. She's arrogant, but I didn't expect that she would even dare to go against you. She really doesn't care about you." Speaking of which, Yang Mi and Jiang Tian had some history. Back then, Jiang Tian had beaten up Lu Zikuan's son, Lu Jinrong, on Yi Gufeng's gambling cruise ship. At that time, Yang Mi was with Lu Jinrong. She was born in an alley and had very low quality. Her acting skills were clumsy, but she was willing to give up her good looks. She slept with investors and directors all the way. Now she was also one of the 4 young actresses. Her reputation was rising and her influence was growing. However, compared to Li Huiyan, she was too far behind. After all, Li Huiyan had already gone international and acted as the female lead in a big Hollywood production. Even the famous Guo Miao paled in comparison. This made Yang Mi, who debuted at the same time as Li Huiyan, hold a grudge. She was extremely jealous and hateful. "What did you say?" Mo Yuza looked at Li Huiyan and snorted coldly. "Young master, why?" Yang Mi was so scared that her face turned pale. Her legs went soft and she almost sat on the ground. She knew that Mo Yuza was very obsessed with Li Huiyan. She originally hoped that with her glib tongue, she could dispel Mo Yuza's love for Li Huiyan and make him fall in love with her. However, she didn't expect that it would make Mo Yuza angry. One had to know that now that the Song and Lu families had withdrawn, the Mo family status had risen. In the political, business and cultural circles, who dared not to give face to the Mo family? There were some things that could not be said. Yang Mi's words had touched Mo Yuza's reverse scale. When they saw Mo Yuza's dragon face become enraged for a time, everyone present went silent like cicadas in winter. Their hair stood on end and they didn't dare breathe loudly. The large hall was completely silent. There were more than 100 people, but not even the slightest sound could be heard. "Call Li Huiyan over," Mo Yuza said in a sinister tone. His face was as cold as ice and his slightly widened eyes were filled with killing intent. Yang Mi immediately took out her elegant white iPhone and dialed a number, snorting coldly in her heart. "Li Huiyan, Li Huiyan. Let's see how you explain this to young Master Mo. You're dead meat this time. Let's see how you're going to compete with me for resources in the future." A moment later the call was connected. Yang Mi smiled and said, "Huiyan, young Master Mo wants to talk to you." 5 minutes later, Li Huiyan hurried over. Mo Yuza still had a smile on his face. He didn't seem to be angry. "Huiyan, I heard that you're having hot pot in spicy country? How did you recover so quickly?" "Young Master Mo, Li Huiyan's face tightened. Mo Yuza was nothing like Xianxia, Wan Chuha and the other young masters he had met in Hong Kong. He was the real crown prince of Yanjin. His father was sitting in the sea and had a high position. She didn't think that Jiang Tian couldn't afford to offend Mo Yuza, but she didn't think that there was a need to cause trouble for Jiang Tian. "You better give me a proper explanation now or I'll be angry." Mo Yuza chuckled, but everyone present felt a chill run down their spines. Everyone knew that offending Mo Yuza would lead to terrible consequences. No matter how rich you were or how powerful you were, as long as you offended him, he could remove your name in seconds. "I'm sorry, young Master Mo. I have a friend who came back from abroad, so..." Li Huiyan sounded helpless and apologetic, hoping that Mo Yuza would let her off the hook. Everyone broke out in cold sweat when they heard Li Huiyan's words. What kind of friend could be more precious than Mo Yuza? "You've been in the entertainment industry for so long, how could you have such low EQ? Friend? Is your friend more important than me?" Mo Yuza raised his eyebrows and pointed at Li Jianwei. "Jianwei." "Yes, young Master Mo." Li Jianwei quickly bowed. "Call his friend over." Mo Yuza's face was filled with murderous intent. "I'd like to see who he is that Huiyan thinks so highly of him." "Young Master Mo, I think we should forget about it." Li Huiyan frowned. The scene in Hong Kong was still lingering in her mind. Back then Jiang Tian had caused a bloodbath in Hong Kong in a fit of rage. Jiang Tian and Mo Yuza were going against each other. If anything happened to Mo Yuza, wouldn't she be a jinx? She really couldn't find any adjectives to describe it, so she added this sentence. "That friend of mine has a bad temper." Dead silence. The whole place was dead silent. Everyone looked at Li Huiyan as if she was an idiot. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Soon after, a buzzing sound was heard and noisy discussions could be heard. "Is this Li Huiyan an idiot? How could she talk to young Master Mo like that?" a female celebrity said in surprise. "She probably doesn't know what's going on. Her hair is long but her knowledge is short." The real estate mogul who gave the courtyard house away swirled his red wine glass and said, "Does she think she can challenge young Master Mo by relying on Zhang Huchen? One word from young Master Mo and Zhang Huchen will have to kneel." Could it be that she's too immersed in acting as a domineering CEO? She thinks she can attract young Master Mo's attention and make young Master Mo like her even more by putting up a resistance? A mogul in the entertainment industry laughed sinisterly. The real domineering mogul doesn't have time to be lovey-dovey with you. Only death awaits if you resist. Everyone keep your voices down. If young Master Mo hears this, we'll all be in trouble. Someone looked nervous. Haha, I don't know how such a low EQ woman got into the entertainment industry. As for Yang Mi, she was laughing hysterically. She tried to hold back her laughter, but the corners of her mouth kept twitching. Do you think I have a good temper? Anger finally appeared on Mo Yu's face. Although his voice was still calm, everyone knew that he was on the verge of exploding. Young Master Mo, I think we should just forget about it because he's... At this point Li Huiyan was about to mention Zhang Tian's name. The most powerful overlord Kong Teichu, the only overlord on the divine role, Zhang Dixian or Zhang Ligua, who crushed the superpowers in the world. However, this sentence became the fuse that ignited Mo Yu's anger. Before she could finish, she was interrupted. Shut up. Mo Yu was finally enraged. His handsome face was covered with frost and his eyes were as sharp as knives. Li Huiyan, am I too nice to you? Or do you think my words don't matter in Yanjin? I don't care who he is. The point is, do you know who I am? At this moment, everyone was stunned and their hearts were pounding. Li Huiyan, you're really in trouble this time. You don't know how to talk. You're going to kill someone. In fact, Li Huiyan meant well. Zhang Tian and Mo Yu both had their own trump cards. Plus, there was no real conflict between them. To put it bluntly, it was just a misunderstanding. There was no need to fight to the death. Li Jianwei, what are you waiting for? Mo Yu glared at Li Jianwei and said coldly. I'm on my way. Li Jianwei was waiting for this. His mother and wife wanted to vent their anger, but they didn't have the courage to do it. They wanted to use someone else to do the dirty work. They wanted to use Mo Yu to kill Zhang Tian. Zhang Tian's family was having a good time. Li Huiyan, who knew that Zhang Tian had returned to China, came to visit him. However, Li Huiyan was called away by her friend, so Zhang Tian didn't take it to heart. After all, Li Huiyan had her own circle of friends. Yanjin's high society wasn't that big, so it wasn't strange to see someone she knew. Suddenly, bang, bang, bang. Someone knocked on the door. Accompanied by Yan Di, Li Jianwei walked in haughtily. You're Li Huiyan's friends? Li Jianwei looked at them with disdain. Young Master Mo Yu wants to invite you over for a drink. Who's Mo Yu? Zhang Tian frowned. Zhang Danfeng's face froze. He said uneasily, he's one of the princes of Yanjin who was on par with Lu Lishuan and Song Poju. Now that they're gone, he's the most powerful among the princes of Yanjin. I see. He should be looking for me. You guys eat first. I'll go take a look myself. Zhang Tian stood up with a smile and walked out of the door. I heard that Mo Yu is looking for me? Who is it? Come out. Zhang Tian looked around and asked casually when he arrived at the venue of the birthday party. Skongte, Li Huiyan's friend, so it's him. I thought it was Zhang Huchen. When Mo Yu saw Zhang Tian, his pupils shrank and his mind went blank. He didn't feel good. At that moment his heart was in turmoil. It was like the Yellow River had burst its banks. He couldn't calm down anymore. Why did he come back? Oh my God, why did I meet this god of slaughter? I'm so unlucky. Why did he come back? Yes, I heard from my dad that he's going to sign a cooperation agreement for the import and export of weapons. Kong Teichu now controls Sidoni. He's invincible in the world. Even the President of America has to bow his head to him. Even the Emperor of Russia has to swallow his pride. At that moment, Mo Yu's heart was about to explode. He almost fainted. Most people didn't know about Zhang Tian's background. However, his father was an important member of a big shot. Mo Yu knew Zhang Tian too well. Just 3 months ago, Zhang Tian had rushed to America and massacred the Rockefeller Building. He had killed Song Beishan and Lu Zhenghua, the 2 super big shots who were on par with Old Master Mo. After that, Zhang Tian went on a killing spree in America. He went against nuclear weapons, destroyed the Universal Shield and killed the superbrain human. Finally, even the Pentagon had to bow their heads to Zhang Tian. No one knew about all this. However, Mo Yu had known about it for a long time. In short, Mo Yu couldn't afford to offend Zhang Tian. Even old Master Mo couldn't afford to offend him. Zhang Tian, now you know who my backer is. How dare you humiliate me? Apologize to me now and I'll forgive you. As for Yan Di, he crossed his arms and actually started hooting at Zhang Tian without any regard for his own life. Chapter 847. At that moment, Mo Yuza was immersed in deep fear and shock. His mind went blank and he did not recover for a long time. As for Zhang Tian losing his cultivation, Mo Yuza did not believe it at all. Mo Yuza's father did not believe it at all. The big shots in the sea did not believe it either. The military experts had analyzed it. Under the power of a nuclear explosion, if Zhang Tian could not withstand it, only death would await him. There was no such thing as losing one's cultivation but not dying. If Zhang Tian could withstand it, it meant that Zhang Tian had the ability to take it head-on. His cultivation would not be reduced either. Besides, who was he now? He was now Sidoni's emperor. Just this identity alone was enough to intimidate the world. Why would he need cultivation? There were many powerful disciples under his banner. Did he need to personally fight with those martial artists? The old master of the Mo family had once gathered the core members of the family for an important meeting. He spent an entire day introducing Zhang Tian in detail. Mo Yuza, on the other hand, was slapped twice by the old man when he sneaked out for a smoke break. It was obvious how much old master Mo feared and respected Zhang Tian. Therefore, Mo Yuza had deeply imprinted Zhang Tian's appearance in the slideshow. The old master had said that when they met Kong Teichu, all the members of the Mo family had to greet him as a sign of respect. They had to use all means, bargaining chips and connections to rope this person in. The reason was simple. If Zhang Tian had not destroyed the Lu and Song families, the Mo family would not have had a chance to rise. Since Zhang Tian had the ability to destroy the Lu and Song families under the nose of the Pentagon, then he had the ability to destroy the Mo family or any of the top political and business families in Wuxia. Yan Di thought that Zhang Tian was so obedient because he was afraid of Mo Yuza. He sneered again. Zhang Tian, now you know who you have offended, right? Young Master Mo is my husband's cousin. Li Jianwei also swaggered and said, I'm sorry. Zhang Tian, what's wrong with you? How dare you call young Master Mo by his name? Don't you know the rules? In this world, how many people dared to provoke young Master Mo? Be careful or I'll teach you a lesson. Mo Yunyun held Mo Yuza's hand and said, Yuza, this is the kid who forced Yan Di to kneel. He even mocked me during dinner. I suspect that his family is corrupt and accepting bribes. Investigate him for me. Yan Di said sarcastically. Zhang Tian, are you regretting it now? How dare you force me to kneel? Now give me. Before she could finish her sentence, she heard a sudden slap. Mo Yuza slapped Yan Di in the face, causing blood to spurt out from her nose. Her face was red and she sat on the ground. Cousin Yu, why did you hit me? Yan Di was stunned, but he was more scared than he felt wronged. Mo Yuza didn't need a reason to hit her, so she didn't need to feel wronged. The consequences of Mo Yuza's anger were too terrifying. It was very likely that her future and even her husband's future would be ruined. How dare you be disrespectful to Master Kong? Do you want to die? Mo Yuza shouted loudly, scaring everyone. They had never seen Mo Yuza so angry. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, Mo Yuza actually walked quickly to Zhang Tian, lowered his noble and arrogant head and said in a low voice, I'm sorry. Grandmaster Zhang, I didn't know that you were Huiyan's friend. I'm sorry for disturbing your mood. I'd like to express my sincerest apologies. Please forgive me this time. This. Everyone was shocked and surprised. They couldn't believe it. How could Master Kong make Mo Yuza bow down? In Wuxia, how many people could make Mo Yuza bow down? In fact, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Mo Yuza wanted to kneel down to Zhang Tian. The urge to kneel was so strong that if Zhang Tian snorted or glared at him, he wouldn't be able to withstand it and would have to kneel down. Mo Yunyun was stunned, then shouted in surprise, Yuza, what's wrong with you? We're relatives. Why are you siding with an outsider and hitting your own people? And this Zhang Tian, what's there to be afraid of? Aren't you afraid that you'll embarrass the Mo family by bowing down to him? What did you say? Mo Yuza was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. He didn't expect his distant aunt to be so reckless. I bowed down to Zhang Tian, that's already my attitude, and you also attended the meeting. You're still being so disrespectful to him. Aren't you pushing me and the entire Mo family into the fire pit? He didn't expect Mo Yunyun to be such a shallow person. During the meeting, she wore a Bluetooth headset and secretly watched the live broadcast of the internet celebrity on her mobile phone. She even tipped him like crazy and missed a lot of information. As for her son and daughter-in-law, they didn't have the opportunity to attend such a high-level meeting. After all, news about Jiang Tian was classified as a 6-star top secret by the government. Couldn't be leaked out easily, and it was even strictly guarded and deleted crazily. It was basically controlled by the high-ranking officials. Otherwise, if the news about these people who had surpassed the immortal state and could challenge the superpowers of the current era spread to the public, it would seriously affect the government's credibility. Slap. In a fit of rage, Mo Yuza slapped Mo Yunyun's face and shouted angrily, "Master Kang's status isn't something you can judge. You slapped me?" Mo Yunyun was stunned. That's a light punishment. Mo Yuza kicked her face and her nose collapsed instantly. He shouted hysterically, "From now on, you have nothing to do with the Mo family. You're expelled from the family." "What? Yuza, how can you punish me so severely?" Mo Yunyun's face changed drastically and she almost burst into tears. Being expelled from the family and abandoned by the Mo family was not a simple sentence. This meant that she and her husband would not receive any support from the Mo family, and even her husband's job would be stripped to the end. Mo Yunyun's family is very rich. Their assets are worth tens of billions. At this time, Jiang Tian said lightly. How could there be such a thing? Mo Yuza pretended to be shocked. He thought that Master Kong was going to kill them all. But he had no other choice. He gritted his teeth and shouted sternly. Mo Yunyun, this is obviously related to corruption and bribery. I didn't expect that there would be such a scum in the Mo family. This is despicable and hateful. Then he turned to look at Jiang Tian and said humbly with a face full of joy. Mr. Jiang, don't worry. The Mo family has always been at odds with corrupt people. I will immediately report this matter to my father and ask the inspection department to investigate. We will definitely punish them severely and give Master Kong and the public an explanation. We're done for. We're completely done for. Mo Yunyun's face was ashen. He could not believe it. She had never expected that her complaint would end up like this. She had shot herself in the foot. Jiang Tian, I know I was wrong. Please say something to young Master Mo, otherwise, my husband and father-in-law will go to jail. At this time, Yendi was no longer arrogant. He was full of fear. He quickly knelt down before Jiang Tian and kowtowed repeatedly. Then Mo Yunyun and Li Jianwei also knelt down and kowtowed to Jiang Tian to beg for mercy. Their biggest backer was the Mo family. If the Mo family abandoned them and attacked them, they would be doomed eternally. Didn't you ask someone to investigate my father? Didn't you want to force me to kneel and beg for mercy? Jiang Tian slapped Yendi's face and said flatly, Go on, I'm waiting. Yendi was not a kind person. He wanted to force him to kneel and ask the Mo family to investigate his father. If he did not have the identity of Kong Teichu, he would have been suppressed to death by the Mo family. It could be said that Jiang Tian was already merciful by not killing them. Yendi's face was swollen from the slap. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, but he did not dare to resist. Jiang Tian kicked Mo Yunyun in the chest and she fell to the ground like a dead dog. Jiang Tian said disdainfully, I broke the law. I even hit people. I even dared to kill people. Didn't you want to investigate me? Come on. Slap. Jiang Tian slapped Li Jianwei's face again. A few of his teeth flew out. You said that I don't deserve to be called Mo Yuza's name? I can't afford to offend him? Jiang Tian snorted. Mo Yuza quickly interrupted and reprimanded him sternly. Li Jianwei, you snob. You don't know Master Kang's current status. But when facing Jiang Tian, the crown prince of Yanjin and the heir of the Mo family, he was like the most loyal brother and had a smile on his face. He smiled and said, Even my old man said that once he sees Master Kong, he must be treated as a guest of honor and treat him with the highest respect. When the rich and famous people present heard this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of status did he have to be to make the old man of the Mo family treat him so seriously? He had to be the leader of a superpower. Li Jianwei, Yendi and Mo Yunyun were in despair. They regretted it so much. How could they afford to offend someone that even their old man had to treat with respect? At this moment they were like a few vicious dogs. They thought that Jiang Tian was a little white rabbit and wanted to bite and ravage it. However, when they took a closer look, they realized that it was actually a prehistoric Tyrannosaurus rex baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.